Wayne Madsen was on with us about 4 months ago. He was on with us a couple of years ago as well. He was on with us a decade ago. And even before that, back in the late 1990s, he was exposing what was going on with the National Security Agency and how it was spying on corporations, how it was spying on individuals, how it was spying on foreign leaders. Now, Wayne should know he was part of secret internal NSA security, known as the Q Group today. That's how he knows about things like the Q Group. It had a different name back then. So that's why he was the type of person that would know way more than somebody like Snowden. But he's always had to be very, very careful and not release any information he has, just like Dr. Bob Bowman, the former head of Star Wars, could only point out what they had accidentally leaked or improperly declassified. And so it was Wayne Madsen that first exposed the Q Group. They pulled it down off the London Guardian. And then, of course, months later, Time Magazine, Newsweek, CNN, they could all report on it, but whitewash it. He will be joining us in an in-depth look, as much as he can say, about inside the National Security Agency coming up and what this really signifies. Because you'd think you'd see Wayne Madsen, who's on record being one of the biggest NSA whistleblowers of all time, back when they didn't arrest you for it in the 1990s. James Bamford got a lot of his info, best-selling author on the subject, from him. But now, obviously, he cannot give out the info. They will kill you or arrest you because what they're doing is so criminal. And how they're using the data. We saw the asinine statement yesterday by the White House that they don't use spying data for economic reasons. And then the inferred propaganda is, oh, we really do, but it's for America. Everything the globalists are doing is to have inside knowledge to shut the Republic down on record. Agenda 21. Speaking of that, Kit Daniels, I was told about this by the Texas Land Commissioner, Jerry Patterson. Heard him talking about it at the Alamo a few weeks ago at an open carry rally. We looked into it, and it's worse than what we were first told. The city of San Antonio is looking to turn most of the city over to United Nations Agenda 21 World Heritage Site management. And when you do that, you go under treaty to UNESCO. I am an expert on this. My first film was America Destroyed by Design. That came out in 1997, 16 years ago, that shows all the documentation, the congressional committees, the UN treaties, the park rangers threatening to arrest me for politely asking about it. This is what authoritarians these people are. And so we're also going to embed, the whole thing's on YouTube, my film America Destroyed by Design, where a 40-pound lighter, Alex Jones, breaks it all down. But this just shows the control system that we deal with as a society, so that's coming up. By the way, if you want the DVD in higher res, just have it in your archives. It's available, America Destroyed by Design, on DVD at InfoWarsStore.com. Not that we ever really sell any, but I think people should buy it. It's one of my most important films. And the reason I got into filmmaking was I had all the documents and the congressional reports and the Kentucky legislature that was fighting it and others. And I'd had Congress people on about it and UN folks on admitting it. I'd gone to UN meetings and videotaped them admitting it, and people didn't believe it back then. Now it's just, oh, yeah, of course our military's under NATO and the UN. Of course we're under global government. But back then, when we could actually do something about it, back when folks, would have stood up before they'd been conditioned incrementally, it was like, oh, that doesn't exist. Those Marines you have on video trying to take our guns, that's not real, even though it was real. Now they're like, oh, it's real, but they need to take our guns. Now, we've got ultra-massive news ahead, though. Food Bank CEO says that welfare cuts may spark riots. That ties into some Pentagon training. The Republican establishment lines up with Democrats in Operation Destroy the Real Tea Party, and the Libertarians are lining up with them as well. This is completely traitorous. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Opposition publicly has declared the real Libertarian Constitutionalist Tea Party as their #1 enemy. They have declared it the #1 enemy to be destroyed. The top Republicans, the top Democrats, and the Libertarians, the establishment Libertarian leadership have declared that they want to destroy the Tea Party because it's pro-gun, pro-family, pro-sovereignty, anti-Agenda 21. And I've got it right here. Democrats call for elimination of the Tea Party. The Tea Party shut down our government. The American people must now shut them down, sign the one-click petition to raise money to destroy them. Put out the DSCC, the #1 Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee with over $50 million budget a year to destroy, most of it foreign bank money, the real Tea Party. The Republican establishment tried to co-opt it. They failed. The real Tea Party is under attack. Here's the next article. Big business declares war on the Tea Party. Pledge to support GOP establishment. Washington Times set to raise hundreds of millions of dollars to make the Tea Party accept open borders, gun control, and offshoring of your jobs. Democratic leadership, Republican leadership. You got McCain endorsing Hillary, 2016 basically. And then here's Politico with more divide and conquer, putting out one of their deceptive push polls where they have selective kind of authoritarian, libertarian phone numbers they know to call. That's how these polls really work, folks. You can pay for whatever you want. Like I've tried to call major polling agencies. I've done national polls probably 10 times or more. And you have to twist their arm to actually ask the question straight and dry. And they go, no, we want to ask it this way because they're so political. Let's continue. I've had a lot of Democratic polling groups won't even take our money. Won't even ask our questions. That's been national news before. Look at this poll. This is Politico. Most libertarians don't identify as Tea Partiers. Man, I tune into mainline Republican radio, Democratic radio, you name it. Who are they attacking? The Tea Party. The Tea Party. Because the proto-Tea Party started 9 years ago, 2 years before the election before last, as Barack Obama was just, climbing up through the Chicago politics to U.S. Senator. It was Ron Paul, and it was patriot, libertarian, anti-war groups who said, we're not communist, we're not anti-gun, we're not anti-family. We don't want to be identified with the Ford Foundation-run anti-war groups that are just loyal opposition. We really want to end these wars. The Tea Party was a pro-gun, anti-war, common-sense constitutional party that had a lot of socially liberal people who had a lot of other constitutional and libertarian ideas involved in it. But it was mainly a coming together of conservatives, constitutionalists, and libertarians, and libertarians, real liberals, Thomas Jefferson type folks, laissez-faire people. We are America, okay? If I had to identify myself, the national media always says, who are you? I'm a fierce constitutionalist. I'm an aggressive constitutionalist. I'm a liberty lover. I'm a fan of freedom. I'm a fan of individualism. I am a classical, hardcore liberal like Thomas Jefferson. Hardcore liberal, folks. That means I believe you have a right to do what you want as long as you don't hurt others, but I have a right to speak out against what you're doing. Liberal doesn't mean you accept everything the system says, but then don't agree with other groups. You agree with all the free speech, but that doesn't mean you then agree with what people are doing. You see, I'm for tolerance, not adoption of so many things people do that I don't like. Just like you can be tolerant of me and my views, like not vaccinating my children, and then if you want to go brain damage your children and assault them and do all that and believe the lies, that's your issue. But don't come back to me and say, well, you're going to make me sick if you're not inoculated. You have supposedly been inoculated, Dumbo. I happen to have the studies that you can look up from Australia to the United States to England. It's all the same, that it was getting rid of open-air sewage and putting screens on windows and better nutrition that by the 20s in the industrialized world lowered infectious diseases by over 80% on average. You can pull the graphs up. We've done it. Then by the late 40s, inoculation becomes widespread and disease actually goes back up around 20% on average, but not to the levels before they put in indoor plumbing. Screen doors, indoor plumbing, better medicine, better infant treatments, lower infant mortality. Go to the statistics. They're ironclad. So that's another issue. I was having an argument with a statistician, one of the heads of the State Department with the whole vaccine tracking system with the county health departments. And he was saying, no, we know they're bad. We know the companies have liability protection. We know, one of our top scientists, her son is brain damaged, she believes, from the vaccine. But she admits it's bad, but says cost-benefit analysis, it's better for the whole that it be done. No, it's not. That's using the skewed statistics. And I went on to say, I believe in inoculation technology. I know you can get acquired immunity through a dead virus or a dead bacteria, but I don't like attenuated where it's only partially damaged. But that's not the issue. And the guy was like freaking out going, how do you know all this? What do you think, I just get up here and just say all this? I've had probably over 100 medical doctors and scientists on the subject over the years. We know. And I started challenging the fella. I said, look, I looked him up. He is who he said he was, but he didn't want to be on record. I said, listen, Dr. Salk admitted 10 years after the polio inoculations, the liquid oral, the live vaccine, that over 100 million people got cancer and most of them died from it, from the SV40 alone. And that was only one of many. And he goes, yeah, I know about that too. And I went, did you know that his aide-de-camp, second-in-command scientist gave a PBS documentary interview, it's online, where he admitted, he gave it to the Boston PBS, we've heard it here many times, that they knew it was going to kill people, but he laughed and said, after all, there are too many people. They did all this on purpose. They're doing polio inoculation campaigns every day of the year worldwide and paralyzing people on the spot. You understand that? And they hide it in plain view. But I didn't mean to go off into that. I've got all this news to cover. The point is that they're coming after any opposition. If you had real moral, Democratic Party, liberal, anti-tyranny movement, they weren't just cheerleaders in a gang promoting authoritarianism, feeling like they're taking over when they're a bunch of useful idiots, then the system will be going after Democrats right now. If the Republican Party establishment was fighting the total destruction of our republic, this is a really bad thing that's happening. This isn't just business as usual, boss hog stuff, as I've said many times. Then they would be going after the mainline Republicans. If the Libertarians were starting to win a bunch of races and moving forward, they would be going after the Libertarian Party. But the Libertarian Party criticizes the Tea Party. The Republican Party criticizes the Tea Party. The Democratic leadership criticizes the Tea Party because it's the real opposition. It's the group pointing out we're already bankrupt. It's the group pointing out that the illegal aliens are already getting all this free welfare. This is the end of the country as we know it, and it's meant to drive down wages. It's the Tea Party fighting and defending the Second Amendment. It's the Tea Party fighting the black boxes and all the cars that they're set to tax us by the mile with. It's the Tea Party that Time Magazine, Newsweek, MSNBC, CNN, Salon, Media Matters, the White House basically, have all said, I am the prophet of. And that's why they don't know how to deal with me, because they do. They see things through archetypes, through advertising, through programming, and I am the archetype of the hero sage, just as every man is who stands up and tries to become a leader for the people. And they don't know how to deal with somebody who's ready to be struck down politically, economically, militarily, physically, it doesn't matter. They don't know how to deal with that. So they actively say, he is a prophet. I'm not saying I'm a prophet. I'm just an info warrior fighting for liberty. But they in the political landscape know my type. It's the archetype of Moses. It's the archetype of George. You have to become that archetype. You have to step into those shoes. You've got the genetics, you've got the spirit, you've got the mind, but you've got to see yourself as a leader. You won't be perfect, but you will step up against the enemy. You have to be Beowulf against Grendel. You have to be the leader. And let me tell you, the Tea Party is made up of combat veterans as the core group who are trained to face down adversity, who are not cowards, and who understand a military attack when they see it. They know this global shutdown is a economic siege backed up by paramilitary. They hear this show, they click, they go, this guy knows what he's talking about. Not because I'm special, I've studied it. I then break their compartmentalization. I don't brainwash them. I break their blinders so that they then can see over the horizon and go, whoa, for their own intel, their own humet. They now know I'm telling them the truth. They're now gathering data and launching past my level of understanding and then force multiplying in the A-team model an info war force multiplication that will defeat the globalists, ladies and gentlemen. We have the keys. We have the torpedoes, to use the Star Wars analogy. We have the torpedoes. We know the enemy's weaknesses. We know how to do it. And we've got unlimited X-Wings in free humanity to go up against it until we hit it. We are not going to be defeated if we realize we cannot be defeated. We don't have 30 X-Wings in this politically. We have millions of X-Wings, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go into the trenches. We're in the trenches, and we're going to blow the Death Star wide open because their attempted total political takeover will be their undoing. We know who they are. We know their battle plan. We know their program. They've been very arrogant. The Libertarian Party has a lot of good people in it, but let's face it, it's infiltrated. That's why the system isn't threatened by it. We need the Libertarian Party to take over the Tea Party, which has already happened, because we started it. The Republicans tried to take it over. We took it back over. It's ours. Use it. It's our weapon system. Let's bring down the globalists together.
Every day it becomes more clear our nation is headed towards an uncertain future. Nothing can ensure your family.
So in most polls,
I got something that
around 70% of Americans or more are now pro-gun. There's a big article out today dealing with the fact that anti-gun stance is more unpopular than ever. That's because anything the establishment pushes is dead on arrival now. And it's just like Obamacare is wildly unpopular in every poll. They've even given up on lying and saying it's popular. They admit it's unpopular. But you've got the Republican Party leadership that helped write it. You've got the Democratic leadership that helped write it. You've got a lot of the top libertarians that don't want a group to actually take over the Republican Party. Then will the Libertarian Party be? You see? We don't want to actually beat the New World Order. We want to just keep going on ineffectually over and over again forever. I'd take over the Democratic Party if we could do that. I'd take over the ham sandwich party. I'd take over the Easter Bunny party. I don't care. I want to get some good people in there to get our government back under control because it's gone over the edge of a cliff. And we've got a better chance taking it back over because it's gone over the edge of a cliff. It's when the government gets really bad and openly evil that you can actually get your country back. Take this as an opportunity, how out of control they've gotten. You've got Obamacare now raising, on average, more than double the premiums. They said it would take a couple of years to quadruple them. They're now revising the numbers. I've got them right here. They're talking about them being quadrupled by, you guessed it, the beginning of 2015, not the end of 2015. And in many states, like Texas, it's already quadrupled. Everyone I know, it's doubled. The deductibles have tripled or quadrupled. That's because it's called the Affordable Care Act. It's all part of the sick joke. When Obama comes out and says, we don't spy on foreign governments for economic data, that is 100% a pure lie, and everybody knows that. We've got Wayne Madsen, NSA whistleblower, coming on in the third hour today, who first talked about all this last year and this year on the broadcast, going over all of it. So that is the reality. Now, continuing here, ladies and gentlemen, let me go over the Obamacare situation. Then we'll get into the latest on NSA, then the economy, then your phone calls. And then we've got guests coming up. A couple short guests popping in today, Wayne Madsen and one other. But let's go ahead now and look at these news articles. CBS, more than 2 million Americans being dropped from their health insurance plans. Folks, I did the math last week. It was 2 million last week. Okay, so it's going to be like 3 million. I've added the numbers up. Okay, it's around 3 million. Last time I added them up, Sunday. In fact, here's Breitbart. They say 1.5 million, but then Washington Free Beacon has done the math. It's actually 2 million. Hey, folks, it's way more than that, okay? It's kind of like we're still talking about 1.6 billion bullets. That was the number 2 years ago. It's like 2.5 billion bullets they bought now. So it's always worse. We're always getting an old number. So there you go. Just millions being thrown off, millions more to be thrown off. Obama administration knew millions could not keep their health insurance. NBC News, but pledged to the public you could keep it. And PolitiFact and all of them said it was a right-wing Tea Party hoax that was going to happen. So see, is the Tea Party good? Are they more popular now? that they told the truth and were right? Yes, they are more popular, and the NSA is spying and knows that data, so now the system's scared and is all piling on against them because they were right, and they warned you, and we were right. So we're all over the national news as horrible people with no proof. Because we don't represent foreign mafias. I won't rob people. If I was going to be corrupt, I'd go rob banks and stuff. You can call me a goody two-shoes dummy, but I don't do corrupt things. I'm one of those old-fashioned weirdos, folks, who likes to have a good family name and feels good being an upright person. They call me a schmuck nowadays. No, the truth is all the people that think it's cool to be corrupt and think their kids are going to escape it, you're the fools. And history shows that. My name will be good long after I've been shoveled into my grave. Nobody will even know who you were. And my family will continue on, Lord willing, having an honorable name on both sides. That's what it's all about. And you haven't figured that out yet, that life is so brief. The years go by like dusk till dawn, like the night. Everybody's got to pay their dues in life. Oh, I know. You've got to lose to learn to win. So the great poets at Aerosmith wrote. So Obama built that. Behold, Obamacare in all its lines of code and glory. We haven't even gotten into the Obamacare stack for the day. When we come back, we're going to run down the betrayal of the American people. I told you, Obama came to betray. All the presidents have been betrayers from one level or another since Kennedy at least. We'll be right back. The news websites are prisonplanet.com, prisonplanet.tv for the nightly news, and Infowars.com. If you have a business, you didn't build that. Somebody else made that happen. Yeah, other hardworking people. But then when Obama's caught illegally spying on everybody under the sun, he didn't know anything about it. He didn't build it. When the government builds this fraudulent website to make the whole story about how it doesn't work, because it does work. They want to just increase your premiums. They're able to do that by law and lower your quality of care. That was Obamacare, dummies. Now they're going to have this big fake debate about it. And if the Tea Party, the real Tea Party, tries to warn anybody, they'll just demonize them with the Republican establishment. This was always the plan, and we told you here. We told you how they were spying on Europe, the names of the groups, how they were doing it, why they were doing it. It's now all public. We told you the black boxes 2 years ago being put in the cars were wireless, and we're going to tax you by the mile and track everything you do. It's now public. The NSA came out today and said, we have a ruling that we interpret it to allow us to use your black boxes to track you without a warrant. Of course they designed these globally and got global combine compacts signed to put these in to track you. That's what the boxes were. It's like, gee, we're going to put this expensive piece of equipment in and make you pay for it. Thousands of dollars of cost onto your vehicle. We're going to do this through continuity of agenda for no reason. And don't listen to the tech groups that are saying it's going to spy on you. I mean, that's a conspiracy theory. And the public went, yeah, you'll never put boxes in our cars to do that. It's already started in Germany. It's already started in England. The same stinking box. Dr. Paul Craig Roberts has an article out today here in my stack. Ignoring reality is going to wipe out the human race is the name of the article up on Infowars.com. And we're on the same page. Being delusional does not get you ahead in life. One time I was at a party about 4 years ago, and this guy's, one of my friend's sister's husband was there openly trying to pick women up at the party. And I said to my buddy, I said, hey, is your sister... is she a swinger? He goes, why do you say that? And I go, man, because her husband's like picking women up. And I heard him in the, telling them, hey, let's get together tomorrow. He goes, no way. And then they got mad at me and said, he's not cheating on you. And then later it all came out I was correct. It's like someone was doing it right in front of her. I was like, man, what's going on? I mean, does your sister know he's picking up women at this party? Just like, it's not my business. I don't even really, I was like, wow, they're married? Because he's trying to pick up women in the kitchen and right in front of your sister in here in the living room. And it's kind of weird. I mean, he's like on these women right in front of me. And they laughed at me and then later got mad at me about it. And I never got an apology either that I was watching this going on. And the last straw was kind of like a family party / some of the family there. He was also hitting on like a 16-year-old girl there. He was like 30-something and a school teacher. And so I forgot, I actually added that part. I was like, and he's hitting on your niece over there, cousin or whatever it was. And they're like, okay, Alex, you know, come on, quit being a conspiracy theorist. They actually said that. Because, I'm sitting there watching a man go right down the line like he was at a bar trying to pick women up at a pickup joint. I'm watching it go on. And see, that's why I'm a bad person. Because I have eyeballs. And I'm like, whoa, they're married? See, I'm supposed to just go along with this. It's like one of my crew members heard me a few months ago tell the story on air about I was at Barnes & Noble buying my son some books and my daughters some books, and the person behind the counter knew who I was and just kept harassing me to get a Barnes & Noble's card. And I said, look, they already get the data off my card if I pay with a card, but I was paying with cash when I get these books. And she goes, well, what do you have to hide? And I said, nothing. I don't want your card. The data gets sold. There's a lot of other stuff involved with these loyalty cards. I don't want to be part of it. And I was very nice about it, but then I started educating her the third or fourth time she got in my face. Then I learned, my crew member freaked out and he goes, oh my gosh, I was at a party this weekend. That woman was there with my wife and everybody. And then there was actually an argument and we had to leave the party. And it was decided, though, at the end of the day that I am a bad man. Hi, I'm here with cash. I'd like to buy, 6 books, children's books. No, I don't want your card. On and on and on. And this is what it's like. Hey, that guy's cheating on your sister. Does she know that? And he's sitting on an underage girl over here. Oh, come on, Alex, knock it off. Same deal everywhere. Hey, they're putting black boxes on the cars that MIT says is going to be used to tax her by the mile and track everyone. And they're putting them in Europe. And here's, shut up, Jones. Come on, it's not going to happen. Hey, the healthcare isn't even going to work on purpose. They'll put it into a process because the parts that do work are double and triple charging you. That's been the plan. They've done it in other countries, and this is how they operate. Shut up, Jones. Obama wouldn't do that. He cares about people and wants to give them something free. And the thing is, I'm not even that smart. That's what's so frustrating about this. Is that if you see a man and his wife on the hike and bike trail, and she looks like she's 6 months pregnant, and you say, hey, got a baby coming, boy or girl? Oh, you don't know yet. Well, interesting. I got 3 kids myself. Listen, read those vaccine inserts. I care about you. They'll tell you they're safe and effective. It's not true. They're really, just read the inserts. And sometimes they go, yeah, we know, we're looking into it. Other times they get mad and like, hey, it's none of your business, pal. It'd be like if I said, hey, that bridge is washed out down there. Look out when you go around that corner, you don't drive into the water. People are like, oh, thank you. But you're like, hey, the establishment wants to hurt you. Oh, don't you tell me my husband's cheating on me right in front of me because I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it. I would be embarrassed by that. So I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait until it gets really embarrassing to do anything about it. And this is the culture of denial that we live in this country. This is the culture where we put up with the abuse from the system. And it's time to stop putting up with it. All right, let me get back into the abuse while we're speaking of that. Here, let's go over the news. Obama admin knew millions could not keep their health insurance. NBC News. CBS, more than 2 million Americans being dropped from their health insurance plans. Don't worry, they're going to pass more legislation to make it even worse to fix it, and then more legislation to make it worse to fix it. See how they got you? It's like one of those finger torture things where you stick your fingers in, and the harder you pull out, you can't get out of it. And they know. They run Al-Qaeda. They run the child kidnapping rings. They run the narcotics rings. It all comes out. It all even comes out in the news. Nobody, the murderers run the government. The murderers run the Fortune 100. They've got the secret helipads and offshore command bases. And they're launching Google barges all over the U.S. to be offshore spying on us through the Google glasses. It's all being announced. And it turns out NASA is really Google and the NSA, and it's all Space Command. Everything I told you a decade ago. Just a total breakaway criminal corporate group that sucked America dry and sucked the empire dry to establish a breakaway advanced technology system. Of course an elite would do that. Of course they would create reservations of advanced technologies, use government regulations to shut down their competition, to shut down other countries developing technology, and then tell you it's for America. Team America. No, no, no. They have used us like an egg, like the white of the egg, to extract the nutrients. They're done with us. They're breaking out of the shell. There's a lot of different species of insects that will lay their eggs, camel spiders and others, inside on the bottom of animals, and they'll burrow in and then rot them out and then make them sick, and then they die. And then they lay even more eggs in the next phase. See, we're dying now from just the moderate egg infestation and hatching and being fed on, and the toxins that the spiders are putting out, and their larvae. Now it's going to be millions, and then we're going to fall over, bloat up, and then the belly's going to pop open, and thousands of baby tyrants are going to pour out and just spill out across the rest of the world. So we're like a camel with pus coming out our eyes, all sick, and we're just laying there, barely able to breathe, with just spiders boiling around inside of us. And if you talk bad about the spiders, that's the Tea Party. Rachel Maddow comes out and says, you're behind the Boston bombing with no proof. You know how much it should freak you out that they let MSNBC, with no proof, say that I'm behind the Boston bombing? Or say that I'm deeply racist and then show nothing deeply racist? That's because it's pure military attack. They don't care if they lose lawsuits. They'll just spend more taxpayer money they give MSNBC. This is the sign of their total criminal commitment. You understand this? They are committed. And the people inside the power structure know what they're doing. Let me just go over what they're doing to you and your family. So, millions kicked off. Here is the Zero Hedge article up on Infowars.com. Obama built that. Behold Obamacare in all its lines of code glory. Obama built that. And actually, the global foreign banks did. And now, good luck tearing it down. And it's several 100 million lines of code and rebuilding it from scratch. It's not meant to. It's meant to be the distraction of why no one ever gets the free goodies. I've learned they do this thing with process. And then they make it all, it's like the Middle East peace process. They just keep the process going forever. Rate shock. MikeAdamsNaturalNews.com. This is up on Infowars.com. Very important article because it actually has the insurance company document in it. Obamacare causing a 539% increase. You only get a 200 and something in California. Oh, they're going to make us pay down here. Obamacare causing a 539% increase in health insurance costs for Texans. See proof. And then when you go over the info on the website, healthcare.gov, it's crucial for the White House that healthcare.gov website continue to fail, because once the site actually starts functioning, Americans are going to be hit with such devastating rate shock that the Obama administration may never recover. Doesn't matter. It'll be in place then, and that's all that matters. And the Republican leadership will make sure the Tea Party can't stop them, and they will continue it. Again, that's why the big insurance companies are giving money against the Tea Party right now. They're all lining up with the Democrats against them. Obamacare is named the Affordable Care Act, or the Sucker the Chumps to a Record Level Ha-Ha-Ha Act. After all, the president promised the rates would be as low as a phone bill. Remember, he said it was going to go way down in cost. Oh, you got to love it, slaves. But I just received a confirmed letter from a friend in Texas showing a 539 smacker rate increase on, and it will, if you say that's an increase, 2 + 2 equals whatever they say in Common Core. So actually a 539% increase is actually a 539% decrease. See, now I could be an MSNBC host. That's right. A racist Texan said it was an increase, but it really was a decrease. So actually it's an increase of 539% rate increase on an existing policy that has been in good standing for years. Well, yeah, it lets you be kicked off now and restart it now with everybody that's been paying in. And they're going to get all the baby boomers' pension funds and your Social Security and your 401ks. But you'll do whatever you're told as they take it because they promise it's going to secure it. They're going to take it in big chunks, 20, 30% every 5, 10 years. You'll never get any of it. And you'll blame us for it, of course. That's part of being a winner is you're so delusional. And that's why they're going to take everything you've got is because you're delusional. You're begging for it. I'm talking to new listeners, on our regular listeners, but those that are laughing and giggling because they've got an Obama sticker right now, they're trendy. So it goes on. As the letter reveals below, we can show this online, the cost for the couple's policy under Humana is increasing from $212 per month to $1,356.60 per month. This is for a couple in good health whose combined income is less than $70,000 a year. So now they're going to get to pay $15,000 a year. They were paying a couple thousand, now they'll pay $15,000. That's a middle-class family, in other words. Isn't that sweet? That's a 539% increase. Well, if they don't like it, they're racist. That's all I have to say. Now, let's turn to the next page. The racist hate mongers in Texas, everyone knows they're rednecks. Any white person that works is evil. Let's use racist terms against them, but that's okay. Let's call them crackers like MSNBC does. Cracker racist white scum. There you go. Got a 530+% increase. Now I'm liberal and trendy. And it breaks it all down and says this is your new health insurance. And you can try to go shop it anywhere else you want. In fact, I want to tweet this out. Have the guys tweet this from the InfoWars article of Mike Adams' article out. Thank you. People can chew gum and walk. I can do that. I can chew bubble gum and play tiddlywinks. But I certainly... Have we made a liner yet with the real Rowdy Piper on the show? Plugging us, saying that. I mean, we've got, it's from the interview. It's on YouTube. Yeah, we need to do that. It's right at the end of the interview. But long story short here, you know, I'm not laughing at you folks. I'm actually really freaked out and really upset because if we don't totally repeal this and arrest everybody that did this, this will set the precedent to rob us at levels even above this. And they've already done it in areas of Europe, Latin America, Asia. I mean, they will take everything you've got. Argentina, they used to say as rich as an Argentine until the 50s. The Argentine economy, Argentina, in the year 1900, was undoubtedly the richest country in this side of the world. And through successive scams and fraud, they are now one of the poorest South American countries. And it's all on record, by the way, how the globalists came in and did it. The exact same thing they're doing here, they did there. And by the way, they set up a domestic security force the same way so that they could take everything you got. And they will take everything you've got. When you see black uniforms and armored vehicles driving around, that isn't for Al-Qaeda. That's for your bank account. Okay? Those police guard the narcotics trafficking mega banks. The average cop isn't involved in the drug dealing, but they'll tell you, I can't investigate a Bank of America, a Wells Fargo, or a private Federal Reserve Bank. They're not even allowed to look at that because those banks run the country. And the cops, you know, most of them are combat soldiers. What are they going to do? That's their job. They train where the enemy, and they're all into it, and they're fine. The thing they don't understand is they're being attacked as well. You will lose everything you've got. And I know a lot of police are awake because you've put 2 and 2 together doing all this training. Here it is. House to take up Keep Your Health Plan Act. Yeah, they'll just come up with some new scam to rip everybody off. Obama administration, of course, cares about us, and that's really all that matters. And so we're going to come back with some final health news. And I've got the big NSA news, the martial law, food stamp riot news, and so much more. And our story on that is on the left-hand side of drudgereport.com.
When an emergency happens...
Whatever they are. You know where they are? Down there, maybe?
We have no idea where that's at.
Roger that. We can't even find them. So we're going to go look for them and ask them a few questions about why they like gun control, why they like statistically more deaths, and why they like Mexico. But we're trying. We can't even find them anywhere.
Are you the head of the local organization?
No, I'm not. I'm the head of the local.
Hey, how you doing? I'm Alex Jones.
Hi, how are you doing?
Good, good, good. Yeah. So tell us about what you're doing here today.
Well, I would prefer to have just a moment to talk to you off camera before we...
Thought I'd play a minute of that or so.
that okay?
From a few weeks ago down at the Alamo.
It's just First Amendment.
The national media gave them more attention than more than 1,500 armed people marching with guns in San Antonio in defiance of the unconstitutional ordinance. And the reason I raised that is it shows how there's maximum 4 anti-gunners there, but the national media basically lied and said they had some huge crowd out there and that they were loving and that we weren't. But that's why the old stream media, the dead stream media, the fraud stream media, the state-run media is imploding because people know they twist stuff. But here's the headline, speaking of the Alamo, United Nations to take over the Alamo. UN flag may fly above the Shrine of Liberty if designated a World Heritage Site, and all the other missions in San Antonio and buffer zones around it. For them to do that, you've got to agree to go under munalization and the UN treaty for at least 100 miles in all directions of each site. That's on record, folks. They'll shut down a gold mine 100 miles away. So I guess that means right here in Austin, Texas, we're going to be in deep trouble. All right, shifting gears out of that. France delays eco-tax on road transport after protest. Heaven forbid we ever protest anything around here. But the name of the game in France is shut down all competition. Only the French socialists are allowed to have businesses that operate. Here's that article I mentioned that's up on Infowars.com and also DrudgeReport.com has on the left-hand side. We're going to get into some of this in the next hour. Food bank CEO suggests welfare cuts may spark riots. And I called Watson this morning. I said, Watson, as usual, you're a great writer, but it's not hardcore enough. She says if people don't get food, they riot. She doesn't suggest. But anyways, riots always begin typically the same way when people cannot afford to eat food. And I'm not saying Margaret Purvis is bad. She runs a big food bank in New York. Good for her. If I would like to get her on the show, the point is that she's being honest about that. So what happens when you get the majority of people unable to feed themselves? They're domesticated. They will vote however you're told. And then really you get to the point of how can they vote then if they totally live under a government mandate and then have the precedent to vote to make me their slave? And that's how this will end, ladies and gentlemen. That's how collectivization always ends. So we've got that report. Now, I haven't gotten to it yet. I want to give the number out. It's 800-259-9231. First-time callers. What do you think of Obamacare now that we know it's a total con game? What do you think of all the NSA news coming out? What do you think of the riot threats and discussions going on if the welfare gets cut, which is going to totally bankrupt us anyways? What is your view on that? We'll also break down the latest big issues on the NSA and more. Briefly, we've got more of it on the way. More of it actually gets here tomorrow and then more next week from the great laboratory that produces the only type of nascent atomic iodine in the world, patented. And you've heard the rave reviews from listeners, the InfoWars Survival Shield from InfoWars Life, InfoWarsLife.com to pre-order so you get it first when it comes in, InfoWarsLife.com. We're going to have for like 10 minutes a guest pop in who's not even a whistleblower, but spoken out against the TSA and being threatened with arrest if he does outside of the airport. So the TSA isn't just set to tell people we'll arrest you if you criticize them in the airport. By the way, will you print me that article? I forgot to ask him about that last time he was on. Now, if you criticize them outside the airport, they'll arrest you because America is so free. And some of the articles up at Infowars.com. EU set to monitor intolerant citizens to ban criticism of Islam or feminism. So, again, they all have rights. You have no rights. Because they get these groups to be hyper-aggressive about their rights, and then you're taught that it's politically correct for you to be a slave. You can't even have kids, can't even be a family. Christianity will be banned, just like the Pentagon's teaching the military being an evangelical is illegal. You will be arrested. That's mainstream news. And then, of course, they backed off when we exposed it for now. But they're going to keep doing it behind the scenes. These are authoritarians. And again, they're out to get Christians, folks. Okay, it's a bottom line clash of civilizations. While the globalists kill Muslims overseas, they bring the Muslims in and then use them as a set piece for divide and conquer. It's total war against everybody, folks. The Democrats don't want to open the borders up along with the Republicans to bring folks in to all be kumbaya happy. They're there to invoke racial division so that they can be the referees. Let's talk. I mean, these are criminals, folks. They know what they're doing. Let's talk to Leslie in North Carolina. You're on the air. Go ahead.
Yes, I was calling to ask the question how Obamacare is going to affect Medicare.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Like what effects is going to have, like what changes is going to have on it?
Well, it's a very complex issue, but it will just further bankrupt the program. They're going to bring in 30 million more illegals to weigh it down. And then it will allow the insurance companies and it will allow the care providers and HMOs to give you a lower quality of care. And then basically bring in death panels if you ever get in bad shape and basically kill you. And so that's their mandate, is to kill you. So down the road, they weigh the system down until it implodes. Then productive people say, we're sick of this. So then they'll start sterilizing folks on welfare, not letting them vote, and then finally euthanizing them. And then, of course, while they poison the middle class as well, but the eugenicists play the poor off against the middle class to get the middle class to sign on to eugenics. See the psychology game they're playing?
Yeah, I do.
Pretty sick, huh?
It is.
And the problem is, as long as people don't get sophisticated enough to understand this, I mean, it's not that sophisticated. Can't people get that the Rothschilds funded both sides of the Napoleonic War? Can't people get that big banks funded Hitler and the West, England and the U.S.? Can't people get these globalists, just like the whistleblowers we've had on, say, look, we're giving Assad weapons and they're giving al-Qaeda weapons? I mean, people need to understand this, that they want to destroy everything. It's pretty easy to manage from that position, isn't it? Because then you're the only secure group. You destroy everyone else but yourself. They have a name for it. It's called siege, the oldest form of total warfare. And I should develop a term for that. We could call it political economic siege. I mean, Agenda 21 is the deployment of physical, human resource, economic, but also cultural total war incrementally, because humans aren't designed to fight something that's incremental, that moves at such a slow speed. It goes through our shield, because our shields are for a frontal attack. You know, when a rhinoceros is running at us, we know to get out of the way. But the enemy moves at such slow speed that it's very hard to deal with. How do you deal with that? Well, you take the historical context of the attack profile as a type of condensed video, time-lapse, and you show people in a historical time-lapse how this is done. I think that's the only way. I've just had an epiphany. It's time-lapse political breakdown. This is it, ladies and gentlemen. We're going in against the New World Order. This is not a drill. This is not a game. Collectivization. They want you poor and dumb and absolutely dependent on them. That is their goal. And you've got the Republican Party leadership. You've got them all working around the clock right now to destroy the Libertarian Constitutionalist Tea Party. And I covered some of that in the last hour, but I want to go back to your phone calls now. The toll-free number is 800-259-9231. We're going to go to Juan and Rob and Terry and JD and Don from the Great Britain, and many more here in just a moment. Here are some of the headlines we haven't gotten to yet, just now breaking up at prisonplanet.com and Infowars.com. EU set to monitor intolerant citizens, controlling social behavior. The proposal would ban criticism of Islam and feminism. And if you try to not want to have your kids homeschooled, you will be arrested, just like in Germany. This is the total tyranny. Remember, we covered it. It got picked up nationally. The Pentagon was teaching through the Southern Poverty Law Center and ADL in official training that being an evangelical Christian, remember the Tea Party is illegal and you will be arrested. They said you will be court-martialed. No ifs, ands, or buts. If you, as a soldier, are part of a mainline Christian group. It'd be one thing if it was a really bad group. That'd still be free speech. And I would defend those rights. Folks, this is like even freaking me out it's moving this fast. I mean, that's because they can't beat us politically The idea of liberty is too popular. They can't just call it right-wing and demonize it. It's as right-wing as Thomas Jefferson, who was a liberal. These are authoritarians. So we've actually got calls about that and get people's take on that subject. Here's another big one, speaking of global governance, right here. United Nations to take over the Alamo. And believe it or not, it's official. It's even in the San Antonio newspaper, San Antonio Express News. United Nations to take over the Alamo. UN flag may fly above Shrine of Liberty if designated as World Heritage Site. When you do that, you go under UN control, and the city goes under UNESCO control. I mean, this is unprecedented what's happening on that front. Continuing now, let's get into the whole NSA situation. Kurt Nimmo wrote a story about this, but it's also in the Associated Press. Government may stop spying on world leaders. What, because they said so? That's like saying Sandusky will stop raping children if you let him be in a room full of them. Or he promises to move his house from right behind a playground. I mean, give me a break. Government may stop spying on world leaders, but not you, because you don't have a lobby. The other mafias maybe so. Here's another one, LA Times. White House okayed spying on allies, U.S. intelligence officials say. They say he's lying, blaming them. This is kind of like when Senator Dodd, back with the NDAA, the White House came out and said, we're against it. It's not going to pass, don't worry, to kill opposition. That's how it works. And then when it came out, they said, oh, Dodd wrote it. And Dodd got mad and released the letter from Obama saying, I'm a constitutional lawyer, it's fine to secretly arrest and execute people, including U.S. citizens. And we have that, I think it's in, is it Obama Deception or Fall of the Republic? No, it's Fall of the Republic. We have that whole debate going on in there. So this is the deception. Obama writes it up with his lawyers. They say, don't worry, it's not going to pass. They secretly get it introduced, the fact that they're the sponsor. Then they blame their own party with the Republicans. And then Obama says, don't worry, it passed. I won't sign it. And then he signs it. It's all about betrayal. And I've never seen so much betrayal. But it's okay because he's black, if you really believe that even. So there is the bottom line on that. White House okayed spying on allies. U.S. intelligence officials say NSA and other U.S. intelligence agency staff members are said to be angry at Obama for denying knowledge of their spying. And, of course, he didn't know about going after the Tea Party with the IRS. That's totally illegal. That's shockingly criminal. To persecute people for their mainline political activity. That's one step away from arresting people for their speech. And they're already telling the Army, a captive audience, we will arrest you if you're part of this. And they're moving to ban this stuff in England. Oh, you don't want your 5-year-old taught how to have anal sex? We'll just arrest you. That's actually going on. Oh, you said the word homosexual. We say that scientific name is hurtful. You're arrested, Robin Page, BBC presenter. Arrested. These are authoritarians. They're the danger. People go, you're a homophobe. I don't even care. Grow up. I care about people having the right to say what they want, whether I agree with it or not. You morons. And I'm telling you, Democrats, don't you get, you are the takeover group. You're the closers. You think you're on a power trip? You're going to get everything ruined as well. You're going to get the collectivism you wanted, dummies. Oh, man, it makes me sick. Do you have any idea about history? No, I guess you don't. You don't have a clue. So here we go. Here's Newsbusters reports a way too common headline, Obama unaware of everything. Scandalous, when he is the front man for it all, but he's in there, helping co-author the stuff. He's a fellow traveler with the New World Order. He's a eugenicist. They think it's cute. They think it's funny. They're very proud of themselves. And then here's a New York Times whitewasher article, the White House on spying, and then it just gets into all their babble. And then the best of all, we had Diane, I'm going to ban your guns, Feinstein. We've had her running around saying that the NSA surveillance is not surveillance. That's a quote. So like I said, your neighbor ends up shooting their other neighbor. When the cops show up, just have the neighbor say, I didn't kill Bob. The cop's like, there's 5 bullet holes in him. You're on surveillance, camera. You're on surveillance camera shooting him. No, I didn't. That's not death. I define that as not death. And the cops just go, okay, he's not dead then. Bye. Have a good day. And I'm telling you, nowadays, that people are in such trances, you could probably do that. You could probably be stabbing your neighbor, with a dagger, and the cops would pull up, and they'd be like, I mean, this is mind control. Now, Dianne Feinstein has come out. Democrat Senate Intelligence Chair Dianne Scumstein calls for major review. She means major whitewash by them, grandstanding up there. I'm so sick of that potato-headed woman and all of her tyranny, that wicked witch. I mean, what a piece of trash. Went to Congress with $1 million, worth over $100 million now, a bloated pig. Her husband gets contracts off of bills she passes by the billions. She is a criminal scumbag. Sue me if it isn't true, you filthy witch, with armed bodyguards and your own concealed carry who wants my gun, because you want to conquer me, witch. I get it. You think I'm your slave. Go to Hades from which you came. I order you in the name of Jesus Christ to depart this plane in the name of Jesus Christ. I bet her head is in the Senate right now, spinning, spewing green vomit, green pea soup, In fact, her new name is Senator Linda Blair Feinstein. They hate our will. They hate it when we have heart. They hate it when we see who they are. I see you. Go ahead and have your buddies nuke a city and blame it on the Patriots, witch. See if you win. You'll be the #1 suspect. Oh, strike me down, witch. You think I'm afraid of you? I'm afraid of the creator of the universe. I'm God-fearing, not devil-fearing. There's our new official Senate photo, ladies and gentlemen, on screen for TV viewers. All right, the witch king, Dianne Feinstein, the great hypocrite defiler of liberty. And then it turns out there's a giant NSA spy hub in Berlin. Folks, the Germans are spying just as much in Europe. And I'm not saying it's good what old Bobo's doing. They're all run by the same globalist interests. This is all them acting like it's not a global private corporate spy grid and 2,000 companies aren't tied into all of it, on and on and on and on and on. It's all complete fraud. This is just the rollout, just like I told you months ago. Years ago, the DEA's jacked into all the NSA stuff, everything you do. That came out in Associated Press, McClatchy newspapers first. Now, I told you that they would go do fake investigations using NSA stuff on low-level drug dealers, people that cut in on their profit. I mean, that's their business. How dare a low-level drug dealer run drugs they don't control or they didn't buy from them? So that's what the NSA is there for. So the DEA, which are a bunch of drug-dealing criminals on record, a bunch of gangster thugs, coward thugs, they're not even honest enough to be a street gangster. They're a bunch of narcotics traffickers. It's on record. Just look it up. They are using that in court, so they have to go do a fake investigation to act like they have the data. Now the New York Times reported Sunday, oh, now they're just admitting warrantless wiretapping in court, and it's just all completely open. Prosecutors now just don't even hide the fact they've got warrantless garbage. And by the way, with all these systems, they can plant stuff on you. Under Section, 213 of the Patriot Act, the sneak and peek provision. And if you catch one of these dirtbags in your house planting smack that they just, shipped in on a C-130 and shipped little kids out on, oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, the abominable demons of hell you've signed on to, everybody. Hope you feel like you're winners, all you thug cops that think you're gangsters, all you bureaucrats. Yeah. Let's look at it. Federal prosecutors, in a policy shift, cite warrantless wiretaps as evidence. But you can't use the NSA data to prove your innocence. Courts have already ruled. They know when you really didn't do something. They don't care. They just want to put you in a private prison owned by large multinational banks that launder drug money. They don't just have you use their product and go rob houses to get the money for the overpriced product. They then put you in their factory, displacing workers on the outside, and the redneck workers on the outside go, make them prisoners work for 25 cents an hour, driving down your wages. But don't feel bad about the rednecks wanting to put everybody in prison. All the liberals want to open the borders up for all the illegals to come in to drive down their wages further as well. Everybody wants to get hurt. And the New World Order is giving. They will hurt you. That's why they've now announced Texas will have 537% premium increases. We'll cover that when we come back. You got a bunch of technocrats with high-tech systems using them to totally enslave us, trying to dumb us down. Look at these headlines, and I'm going back to your calls. NASDAQ index frozen, stocks trading normally. This went on for like an hour today. And you're going to see more and more of this every time it turns out they were monkeying, stealing a bunch of money, changing something in the financial matrix. So that's reported by CNBC. But don't worry, everything's fine now. Move along, nothing to see here. And then, even healthy kids can die from flu complications, says the CDC, run and funded by Big Pharma, who's given themselves total liability protection from their deadly flu shot that they admit never protects you. It's a total fraud and doubles your chances of getting the regular seasonal flu. Canadian study. But so what? Here's the Los Angeles Times. Did you know they found the fountain of youth? It wasn't in Florida? No. Flu shots may reduce risk of heart attacks, strokes, and even death, says the Los Angeles Times. Science Now. Doesn't matter, all the studies show 3 consecutive flu shots above 60 double your chances of Alzheimer's. I shouldn't laugh. It's just very painful to cover this. That's right. And there's no side effects, even though the insert says the opposite. It makes you live forever. You know what? You know, Jesus came out of his tomb on the 3rd day. Somebody in a time machine flew back there, gave him a flu shot. Did you know that? In fact, the Roman soldier, that's what it was on the end of the spear of destiny. The spear of destiny was a big flu shot full of mercury, which they say is good for your brain. It's good for children's brains. I actually have a CBS News clip. Not going to play it again and torture you. I played it 300 times over the years. Let's go to some other evil people. Robert's listening in Chicago, the home of our Lord and King, Obama, listening on 1530 AM WCKG. And Rob, good to have you on the show today, terrorist.
Hey, Alex, brother. How you doing over there?
I'm doing great. I love the government.
Yeah, you know, it's good to talk to you. Yeah, it's pretty much a joke. I think everything that this whole thing going on with this country, it's just blowing up. I mean, it's accelerating pretty fast. But I love that you keep putting the spotlight on this evil, and God help us all, and God bless us all, that's for sure.
Well, here's the deal. People think, oh, my gosh, this is going to bring them down. They're so corrupt. No. They're going to bring us down. They're trying to wreck the country to make the average person only depend on government. They're trying to hurt us so bad and destroy every other avenue to collectivize us, and it's called Cloward and Piven, which is just a composite of an older strategy. So this is a criminal conspiracy. We have to get that word out to everybody, or they're going to win. But things are blowing up in their face nicely. They're actually getting the blame for it, and that's good.
You know, I wanted to say, is there a way that you could spotlight more names of people that support, you know, basically going against Obamacare in general? I mean, can you...
yeah, it's the real grassroots Tea Party that the entire Republican leadership and Democratic leadership have declared concerted war, and the Fortune 500 are putting hundreds of millions in now for 2014. Hundreds of millions. One Senate campaign fund is giving $50 million against the Tea Party. That's because the real Tea Party is the threat. They don't want America bankrupted. They want us to own guns. They want sovereignty. They want to control the borders. I mean, I wouldn't be against 20 million illegals if we could get them to be pro-America and not, you know, get welfare. But no, it's meant to sink the country. The globalists want to just, you know how the Soviets took over countries, right? They would get in politically with socialists and then wreck everything and then collapse it and say, oh, Russia's coming in to help us. Or the central government's coming in to help you. And then people would say, you're the ones that cut off the stuff that did this. And they would have the secret police arrest them and say, quiet, everyone. It's these people criticizing the dear leader's plan that caused all the problems. North Korea wants people to live like that over there. Do you understand that? This is what they do. They enjoy starving and death because it makes them feel more powerful in their uniforms. You understand that criminology, sir? It's a mass psychopathic wonderland is what they want to build. They call it the Red Terror.
I agree. It's the old saying, it's what the eyes see and the ears hear, the mind believes. Redirection. And they've been doing it for a long time.
Well, we have to realize that these are conscious criminals. I mean, they know they're criminals. Even their mid-level people are officers. I've snuck into their meetings. I've covered it. I've been to Agenda 21 meetings. I've talked to them with the camera off, and I go, this is a criminal takeover. And they've laughed at me and said, yeah, it is. And get out of my way or I'll kick your bleep. I had a Dallas Cowboy at one of the famous Agenda 21 meetings, Smart Growth, and we turned the cameras off because they said we couldn't go in this meeting room unless we did. We interviewed Michael Dell there, a bunch of others. And I was like, in the little press conference thing, it was only written questions. I had to sign a thing to do that. So Mike Hansen was there with his camera left outside. And he was there. I forget the Dallas Cowboys name. He's famous. He was a white guy. And I said that. He goes really aggressive. And he goes, get out of my way before I kick your bleep. Of course we're taking over. They all just looked at each other and laughed. Basically high-fived the mayor. It was just like, yeah, these people are ours. Criminal takeover. Yeah, there's nothing they won't take. Yeah. We'll be right back. We're back, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go to Terry and JD and Juan and Don and Anthony, everybody, here in about 15 minutes when our guest leaves us. And then we've got the one, the only, Wayne Madsen, the original NSA whistleblower. That's why the media, the corporate-controlled media, gives him no coverage. He's the guy years ago, back in the late 90s, and then again last year on this show and earlier this year, breaking down everything about the NSA that he can say in Europe. And pointing out the main spy bases are in England. All of that is now in the news today. And Cameron is calling for arresting members of the press that report on it now. That's the Prime Minister from 10 Downing Narcotics Trafficking Street over in England. By the way, there's some pedophile news on the Savelle. His chauffeur that reportedly was deeply involved in things and had been gotten in trouble for all the children being procured for the royal family, including reportedly children that didn't come back. That's just, they don't just, yeah. Pretty hardcore beyond Sandusky. He was a big supplier as well to the establishment. You don't get in the club unless you do that. Well, he's been found dead after missing the trial. David Smith was the first person to be charged with sexual offenses as part of the operation. U-Tree, following the Savelle revelations, the top BBC broadcaster. Well, you can see a Victoria's Secret ad there on Sky News. Let's just say they're not into that. How you couldn't be, I don't have any idea, but okay. This is what demons are into. Anyways, the point is that we're going to be talking about that a little bit for you as well. By the way, I remember David Icke a decade ago naming Savelle and saying he procured children for the royal family. And, of course, Icke worked at the BBC, and the stuff he says is so wild, and then it just keeps coming true. No wonder people think he's so whacked out. Maybe he isn't crazy. Maybe he just knows too much and saw too much. I don't even know anymore. I mean, I don't know what to say at this point, but if you look up Savelle, Jimmy Savelle, at the photos of him, the demonic pig creature that ran children's charities for the CPS and would drive huge busloads of them around to the different castles. Can you imagine the... reportedly, folks, they would slit children's throats in front of the prime ministers. That's what else Icke said 10 years ago. And I'm sure it's all true. They never sued him over it. With a straight razor, folks, little girls. Can you imagine slitting a 4-year-old girl's throat? That's who you're dealing with, people that like to slit children's throats and watch them bleed out on the ground. And I'm sorry you don't want to hear stuff like this, folks. This is who we face. Joseph Mengele liked to do stuff like that. By the way, he was protected and brought to South America by the CIA. That has been partially declassified. He would at least once a week take 5 kids in the back of his Mercedes open-air limo with 2 SS officers, and he would drive children out of the woods, and then he liked to watch them gobble a chocolate bar. These were starving children. And then he would shoot them each in the head with a Luger just to watch he liked to watch the blood spray out of their heads. And, of course, those were the lucky kids. Other ones he tortured sometimes for months on end, sewing twins together, everything else. Oh, I know, you don't want to hear this. You want to watch fake zombie shows and, you know, be in a culture of death and murder and think it's all cute and sexy, while the globalists are consuming children quite literally right now. You go watch movies like Hostel and get into the torture and live vicariously through it. You're going to have your world torn apart for what you've done to these children. By not fighting the New World Order, you've all aided it. In fact, all of us are guilty. After all, we've killed 50+ million babies in this country since Roe v. Wade, and we just say they're not children. Well, why should they be children up to age 3 now? These different bioethics journals come out and say, kill babies that are healthy up to age 3. Kill old people. Why not? And you're like, yeah, I'm a yuppie. I'm a collectivist. Kill people. I'll get more welfare. You're not going to get anything either, you unempathetic little degenerate. You're not a liberal. What you are is blood-sucking parasites and filth. Excuse me. I started looking at images of Savelle and just... Pull up images of Sandusky, that same demonic look, and their mouths are all these yellow, crooked, demonic teeth, and they look like demons. It's because they are. I mean, when I see the image of Jerry Sandusky, man, I just think about what I do to his head with a baseball bat. And that's why I just can't look at it, because anybody that hurts children, like a giant demonic ferret. Yeah, that's not the really sick ones. Get one where he's smiling. He's got all pointed teeth, basically. I mean, that, and then put him next to Sandusky next to Savelle. And you better believe it, folks, he was a procurer of children. Why do you think he was raping kids at high noon in the showers? Because that whole place is a giant pedo command base. And of course, I told you that, and it's all come out now. That's who runs America, is a bunch of pedophile trash. I'm just begging them to kill me when I get on them like this, but I just can't shut up. I don't want to die, but I'm not going to live like a coward, and they're hurting children right now, and all of us have to wake up to the scum that's taken this country over. You think our government protected Joseph Mengele just to get his knowledge, folks? They loved him. They'd done all the secret testing on little kids here as well. He was coming home. Learn about eugenics. Learn about secret testing. Learn about it. Hillary apologized this year for injecting Guatemalan children in a CIA program with syphilis. You don't just think they inject the black people with syphilis, do you? They inject anybody they can get their hands on. Nobody's going to believe poor black folks are Guatemalans, and nobody's going to believe anybody else now either. Because the government loves us, and we've learned to love them and do what they say, and now they're going to take real good care of everybody. Don't you all feel safe? We're going to our guest here in a moment, Jonathan Corbett. But before I go any further, I want to just tell folks we have the best gravity-fed filters. They blow away the competition in side-by-side comparisons. Go look at the comparisons to all the leading competition. The Pro Pure, Pro One cuts out the fluoride, the glyphosates, all of it in one filter. It's revolutionary. It's not heads above the competition. It is light years above them. And they've now got a pitcher system that's only $59. The filter should be that much. With the nice pitcher, the whole system, you get the stainless steel for 100 and something with the Nomad and some of their least expensive systems. They've got big systems up to $300. The point is your purchase also supports the broadcast. Promo code WATER. Oh, sorry, it's $54 for that, not $59. For the Pro Pure water pitcher with Pro Black DM filter. And you can also get it with the Pro One. So it's all available at InfoWarsStore.com or by calling toll-free 888-253-3139, 888-253-3139. And then you can also go to InfoWarsStore.com. We have the Nascent Iodine. More of it just came in today, but that's going to fill some back orders. We'll be able to fill all the orders that have come in next week when the big mother load shipment gets in, that's being produced in the laboratory right now with this patented system for the thyroid and for blocking different radioactive isotopes that go into the thyroid, but also for overall glandular health. Read the details at InfoWarsLife.com. Watch the video that breaks it down with Dr. Group and others. It is InfoWars Life Survival Shield, Nascent Iodine dietary supplement, unlike any other out there, patented. InfoWarsLife.com. Or InfoWarsStore.com will also take you there, 888-253-3139. Or you can also write to us at P.O. Box 19549, Austin, Texas, 78760. All right, folks. Shifting gears now to our guest who's with us till the end of the hour. Then we're going to take your calls. And then at 15 after, get our NSA whistleblower on. Jonathan Corbett is a technology entrepreneur and civil rights advocate. That means terrorist. Mr. Corbett has worked on issues such as TSA abuse and NYPD stop and frisk, which he's helped defeat, and is now continuing by going through the body scanners with simulated explosives to prove it's all a fraud. And to explain to some of the viewers out there that I saw on YouTube later, he was involved in a court case with them where documents came out that got inadvertently published by somebody in the government, not him, on websites. And then they called him up and said, you're not allowed to talk about this, even though it was now public. And then they removed it off the government website. some of the morons on YouTube later when this live show got archived on there were thinking, who's this guy claiming he's been threatened by a federal prosecutor? How do we know who he is? Well, listen, dummies, he's been all over international news as an activist against the TSA. So I need to introduce him properly to the morons out there. And I'm not mad at you, except I want you to be smart and informed, not making excuses about everything. Stop being in denial. And he's got TSA outofourpants.wordpress.com. And so he didn't leak this info. It was put out there by the government. He starts talking about it. By the time we call him to get him on, when we got tipped off by emails, it was going on by listeners, that they had put up on their site that it's all fake, it's not for terrorists, it's to condition us and train us. I don't need to see secret documents to know that. It's obvious. But for the general public, this is coffin nails to this fraudulent agency that now is getting all your personal data and tracking you outside the airport. And so they call up and threaten him that bad things are going to happen if he talks about a document that somebody in their system released, probably a whistleblower, but not him in the federal courts. And then the dumbed-down public can't even understand he's a famous whistleblower himself by infiltrating and exposing them. So he joins us, but I want to play this clip because it fits in with an article we had out 2 weeks ago, October 11th. TSA loudspeakers threaten travelers with arrest for joking about security. Let's play that clip and then go to our guest.
Pay particular attention to your luggage and personal belongings. Unattended luggage will, and personal belongings may be treated as a danger to the facility. Do not be persuaded by strangers or individuals you do not know well to take articles aboard your flight. You are also reminded that any inappropriate remarks or jokes concerning security may result in your arrest. We appreciate your cooperation while these measures are in effect.
So there you go. Then I have other articles here. Cameron says they'll take tougher measures if media continues publishing Snowden leaks. Google took down a video that the Free Syrian Electronic Army fighting the Al-Qaeda army, the fake Free Syrian Army, they put out a video or link to it, and then Google took it down. You can't see the Al-Qaeda atrocities. DHS whistleblower reveals fast-track visas for foreign investors, creating national security risk. This is the persecution. But Jonathan Corbett is not even a whistleblower. He's an investigative journalist activist. But then they call him up saying it is whistleblowing to have his own blog about documents they put out. Say what you can say about your own court case. Or you're not even allowed to bring up your litigation with the Toilet Safety Administration.
Hey, Alex, how are you? I can talk about anything but the contents of those leaked documents.
All right, we'll talk about the lawsuit. Tell folks who you are for the P-Brains out on YouTube.
Sure. I've been fighting TSA abuse for the last 3 years now. I filed the first lawsuit against the TSA's body scanners and their new pat-down where they literally put their hands in your pants. They've been doing this for 3 years, and my lawsuit is finally reaching the merits of the case. The judge is actually going to have to make a ruling pretty soon.
You know, should we change their name to the Total Sandusky Administration?
There's a lot of good acronyms out there for the TSA. There's a lot of potential. Maybe we should have a poll.
What's your favorite?
I like the South Park Toilet Safety Administration. That was a good one.
What about total sexual assault? I mean, that's what it is.
Yep. Also, a common one is thousands standing around because that's what you see at the checkpoints. You go there and you see about 4 or 5 people actually working and about 6 or 7 more kind of just standing there and maybe barking some orders at the travelers every once in a while.
Yeah, when I was in Dallas flying back, they were literally growling and yelling at people with pleasure. 2 guys that looked just like the guys in the Toilet Safety Administration, South Park, with the little goatees, the exact outfit, literally yelling at people with hatred. And then they saw me and started groveling in fear. What do you make of them now saying they want to arrest anyone that dares criticize their imperial lordships?
Well, I think what we need to do is have a protest with some professional comedians and go into airports and tell some jokes.
You mean in land of the free, home of the brave, have people tell jokes? That doesn't sound too... that sounds terrorist.
Yeah, it does. It's a radical idea, petitioning one's government for redress and demanding, probable cause before searches and so forth. But maybe the TSA will catch on if we keep pounding this idea into their heads.
Now, continuing, obviously, I kind of obsessed because sometimes I look at the YouTube comments when I introduced you last time. Folks are like, how do we know he was in court? How do we know he was threatened? You know, the point is you've been in the national news when you infiltrate their security and show it's a fraud, but you're in court with them. These documents come out, and now they're trying to gag you. And some of the public can't even figure out how this is an assault on free speech. You know, without getting into the specifics of what's in the documents, we can direct them to the article on Infowars.com about it. I think the headline is TSA threatens blogger for documents they released. But specifically, the war on the press. What do you want to say about that?
It's been very interesting to see how the press works. I didn't really have much experience with the press before this. Then my cases started getting covered, and that video that I put out, beating the scanners, got covered. And I saw a lot of interesting things. The first is that the journalism is pretty much dead. About 95% of the sites and newspapers that published anything about me didn't actually call for a quote, and most of them just kind of rehashed stuff that other journalists said. But we also saw a lot of attempted censorship by the TSA. After my video came out, the TSA warned journalists not to cover it. Essentially, the threat being that the TSA wouldn't participate in any future interviews.
That's right. We had a Florida TV reporter actually on the show where they said, you better not report on this or else, you know, we'll put you on a no-fly list, basically. And that became national news only because Drudge Report covered it.
Correct. So it seems that the TSA is big on this kind of censorship. I'm big on transparency, so as much as I can publish, which is almost everything I do publish on that blog, tsaoutofouropants.wordpress.com. And for the doubters on your site, they can go to the court's website at pacer.gov, and they can look up these cases as well.
Yeah, what's amazing is they don't even care of the documents out there now. They just want you to shut up. And, I mean, really, I'm sure you've talked to your lawyer. I don't know if they can tell you to shut up about documents from your case that are public.
Yeah, well, right now we have a motion in front of the Court of Appeals asking them to basically vacate the gag order. The motion has been pending now for about a week. The TSA will probably respond to it before the court makes a ruling. Hopefully that'll be cleared up, because right now the gag order serves really no purpose to protect any kind of sensitive information, because it's all out there. The only purpose it would serve is to prevent me from being a mouthpiece and kind of getting attention.
But obviously they're censoring the dinosaur media, the kleptocrat media, the state-run media. I mean, that's a real litmus test showing how controlled they are. It's been out for 2 weeks on the federal court website, them admitting in court that it's all fake, not for terrorists, never stopped a terrorist. That should be sensational headlines everywhere. Instead, they're threatening you to keep your mouth shut about your court case.
I would think that it would be big enough news for national and international media attention. And your listeners and viewers can go to your website to see what we're talking about. I just unfortunately can't talk about it.
Or they told you, quote, bad things will happen to you. Was it Don Corleone gave you a call? Was Luco Broxy there? Well, I guess they're the good guys compared to these people. We'll be right back.
We the people grow cotton.
All right, Wayne Madsen's coming up at 15 after. As soon as this guest leaves us, I'm going to try to go to your calls as quickly as possible. There's some other economic news I've got to get to. But if you want the news behind the news, the story behind the story dealing with the TSA and its tie-in to the NSA and more, we're going to have Wayne Madsen, NSA whistleblower, on with us. Right now, Jonathan Corbett is on from tsaoutofmypants.wordpress.com. And look, I mean, I like to travel. And it's getting dangerous. And I will not travel with my children in airports now because I see them drag crying children away, and you see an obvious Sandusky, you know, grabbing your son or daughter's genitals and really getting off on it. I went to a rock concert, and the only woman they pulled out was my buddy's wife, who's extremely attractive, and it was a woman, and she was literally salivating, grabbing her all over her body. And it's just insane what a slave state we've become. And it's all done in the name of security when the government publicly runs al-Qaeda. But we've been putting those articles on screen. We'll put some of them back on screen that have the documents the TSA doesn't want you to see and that the whore media will not cover. That it's all completely fake. DOJ censors blogger for documents they released, internal TSA documents, body scanners, pat-downs, not for terrorists. But this attack, and there's the documents they don't want you to see, this attack on free speech, Jonathan Corbett, now expanding out to them getting your private data. Look how they say we'll arrest you if you make jokes. It really shows what an imperious, dangerous group this is. We got about 4 minutes in this segment. What can you impart to folks that that the Justice Department mafia won't arrest you for?
Well, the first thing you can do to show your contempt for TSA procedures is the opt-out. Those little body scanners are actually optional. Unfortunately, the other option is receiving a pat-down, which is, for me, about just as bad. But it ends up taking...
It's not called a pat-down, it's called a Sandusky. Go ahead.
Yeah, love pats, as we had a senator call it once. But that opt-out actually takes a good bit of the TSA's time, and that's a good indicator of people's protest for these body scanners.
Love
so
pats.
that's the number one thing that you can do to help out at the airport.
Ooh, I bet that's what Sandusky called it, love pats. That is so disgusting.
Let your TSA screener know how it makes you feel. These people that are doing the screenings are people too. And honestly, most of them are uncomfortable. Most of the TSA screeners are not evil pedophiles or anything like that. Most of them are just decent people trying to make some money. But this job makes them uncomfortable. And if you mention it to them, it could have some effects.
Any other points you'd like to impart to people about the Pedo Bear administration?
It's something that we're seeing consistent across every agency. It came out today in the news that Obama knew that we'd all have our health insurance coverage after Obamacare came out. And, he lied about that. And he lied about the NSA, and he lied about whose phones he was tapping. The TSA comes out and they lie about what these body scanners can do and so on and so forth. We're seeing it across every agency. How do we fix this? How do we make our agencies accountable to the people for telling the truth? That's something we should figure out.
In closing, from fighting him over the last few years, why did you get involved? How did it trigger your activism? A, B, where do you think this is all going? With their total victory on the streets, or really put the genie back in the bottle, or the Sandusky back in the bottle?
Yeah, Alex, I got into this because I love traveling too, and I don't want to be harassed every time I go to the airports, and I don't want to have some government person tell me they need to use some machine to take off my clothes or touch me all over. We've seen that this has spread to buses, Amtrak. We've seen it even just in subway stations and pretty much anywhere. So this is important that we stop, or else it will end up Sandusky all over the world.
Well, they've had a lot of TSA people arrested and convicted, and they've had top psychiatrists and psychologists say it's training our children for the Sanduskyization of America. The American flag should now be Sandusky.
You are listening to GC.
Got NSA whistleblower par excellence, formerly in NSA security. And I don't mean security guards out front. I mean actually over NSA security areas, who is one of the main people in the top 2 or 3 up there with Snowden. It's just that when he blew the whistle, they weren't arresting people back then for exposing criminal spying. He's the one, of course, months ago that explained all the European spying, exactly what was happening. It broke in the London Guardian, and then they retracted the story under British government threats. But it was still too late. Now the British government's out threatening again. So Wayne Madsen's coming up. Right now, let's go to Terry in Washington. Terry, thanks for holding. Then we'll go to JD, Juan, Don, and I didn't say that on purpose, but that actually says Don Juan on the screen with the 2 names next to each other. Let's go to Terry in Washington. Go ahead.
Hey, fellas.
Hey, buddy.
Good to you. Hey, I'm sitting here in Washington waiting to get radiated. I can't believe how Obama Biden has screwed this country up so bad.
Obama bin Laden. That's a good name for him, yeah.
Obama Biden.
Obama Lynn Biden.
Yeah, there you go.
Don't forget the succulent, luscious Hillary.
Oh, God. Oh, man. I tell you, if she gets in, we're really screwed.
Now, do you think her girlfriends really like her? Or just, it's like asking, do the Playmates really like Hugh Hefner, or is it for his money? I wonder if all the women, like with her and Janet Reno and all of them. Janet Reno came out in the Miami papers, got caught with a 12-year-old in the back of a car. Janet Reno, years ago, it was like 15 years ago, was on so many drugs that she was pulled over, had vomited all over the child that was a CPS child. I'm sorry, go ahead. What were you saying? That's a true story, by the way.
No, that's fine. The NSA. Now, we know the real story behind, what happened in the last couple of years. But I challenge Obama to tell me why he didn't stop the shooting at the theater, Sandy Hook, Fort Hood, the Boston Marathon bombing. So that tells you right there, the NSA does not work. And it's not there for that reason.
Well, number one, questioning our leader is racist. Do you understand you may have to be sent for re-education? Plus, you don't criticize our dear leader. I appreciate your call. I apologize for that racism, folks. Let's talk to JD in California. Welcome, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I was just going through your InfoWars website there, and I saw that healthcare.gov story. And I noticed, I wonder if it's one of the elite sick joke or something, but it looks like somebody's hanging themselves to death. All you see is a pair of legs and a kicked-out stool underneath them.
What are you talking about specifically at healthcare.gov?
Just the cover page of the website.
Wow. Well, you know, I mean, they did have the number 1-800-FU on purpose. That was because you have to understand, with con artists, throwing it in your face is the most luscious part. How much do you think his followers will take?
Oh, well, like you joke about all the time, even though it's not a joke, I really think that they would walk right off the cliff or put their head in the guillotine hole. You know, as long as they're promised something free, they're just that gullible and, you know, willing to believe that something's going to come free.
Well, yeah, I mean, that ought to be a plan. Just say, look, stick your head in a guillotine, and you're gonna not be racist. And the average person would actually kill people. Yeah, that's right. The healthcare insurance market is open. There it is. I think that's one of the tiles we put together or somebody else did. That's not officially on the site. But don't give them any ideas, because they did put on the cover of Newsweek, the case for killing Granny, and they showed a plug being pulled out of the wall. Dumb little yuppies think they're going to get some extra goodies. We'll be right back.
Cal Benz.
The NSA whistleblower that the dinosaur kleptocratic press will not cover is coming up. In fact, guys, we use search engine in there. The articles we wrote like 3-4 months ago, whenever it was, when the London Guardian spikes NSA whistleblower story, it was something like that. Wayne Madsen came out, said they're spying on all the leaders, they're spying on the foreign consulates, they have spy bases in Berlin, spy bases at this place in England, here's the undersea cable, here's how they're doing it all. And then they removed the article. They didn't say it wasn't true, they removed it. Then they had MSNBC come out and say it wasn't real, which only made them protest too much. Because, of course, it all has come out now. I just realized now in hindsight how Wayne Madsen, coming on this show for more than, it's got to be 13, 14 years, and then going back and doing research, he's like the original NSA whistleblower. He's testified before the EU, foreign parliaments, Congress, back when they didn't arrest you for doing the right thing. So you're going to hear really the inside scoop on it all with Wayne Madsen coming up here. But I said I'd go to your phone calls. I want to hear from you. Juan in California. You're on the air. You want to talk about insurance and healthcare and Obamacare. Yeah. For those that don't know, the article's up on Infowars.com, the Humana letter, saying a 530+% increase for middle-class families in 1 year. So it's not a doubling. I'm sorry. It's a 500% increase. That's why it's the Affordable Care Act. So that's up on Infowars.com. And if you don't like it, you're a racist. But Juan, go ahead.
Yes, I work for a major AIDS organization, and my major function of the job is to, see new patients, screen them for insurance, what they're eligible for. So because of that, my company sent me over to Affordable Care Act training, to screen people, so we can get them on that. And at the training, we literally were told, like, on several occasions to not call it affordable. And I actually, told them, well, what's the name of the act, the Affordable Care Act? They said, yeah, but it's really not affordable, so just call it Obamacare. And there was a few, crazy things that, when we first started the training, they were like, well, let's separate the myths from the facts. And I said, well, what? I heard, that they have death panels. And they said, oh, no, that's a myth. And I said, well, I heard, that premiums are going to go up. Oh, that's a myth. So
they don't call it death panels.
Yeah.
They have federal boards that cut back the care and decide if you get care. But go ahead.
Yeah, and it was just, I think these people actually believed it themselves. You know, they were basically told all this stuff, and then so I had so many concerns, and they basically singled me out as, well, you're saying that this is negative, and I said, well, I think it is, in my opinion. And so they said, well, you guys all in this room all have insurance, right, through your employers? And we all said yes. They're like, well, don't worry, it won't affect you as much. I said, well, still, this is my job. I try to help patients see what's best for them, and yeah, so it was a big mess, and I walked out of there actually a lot more concerned than when I.
Now, how long ago? Training. How long ago was this, Juan?
It was on last week, actually. The training.
Okay. So they were still in denial even last week. When it's on record, it doesn't work. On average, doubling of premiums. Some states over 500% on average. They've got kicked hundreds of thousands off in California, hundreds of thousands in Florida. Over 2 million people kicked off right now, and they're still saying everything's fine, though.
That's what they said. Yep. Well, for us, they basically were telling us, you guys don't worry too much. It won't affect you. I said, well, we're here for our patients, for the people that we're going to be enrolling. And they said, well, it's just, it's part of the law. And what they compared it to was car insurance. They said, well, back in the past, car insurance wasn't mandatory, but in the future, our kids won't even know that it was a choice to have a health insurance or not. They're going to be conditioned, and they were saying these words and things in a good way, and I was like, oh God,
they've all been taught basic psychology against the public, and they just think it's normal that they're engaged in psyops, deception, nudging, acclimation, preparation. Really good points. Thank you, Juan. Let's go to Don in Great Britain. I appreciate him holding. Forgot we had a call from England, made him hold. I apologize. Don in Michigan wants to talk about Great Britain. I saw that wrong. We get calls from England all the time. Go ahead, Don. You're on the air.
How you doing, Alex?
Good.
Hey, you're truly doing the Lord's work, because I said a little prayer. In northern Michigan, we got a lot of areas where the cell phone doesn't work, So I said a little prayer, and I said, please hold him through, because I got to continue to move and do my work. And here you are. You're still here. So I went through all those bad spots, and here you are.
Well, God bless you, brother.
Yeah. And appreciate your quoting the Lord today. And most people, they should look at Luke 12:4 and see who we should fear, because that's a very important verse. But anyway, I was wondering if you knew about this bond thing, this money or financial bond thing that Great Britain is doing with Muslim. I don't know what the Muslim denomination is, but there's supposed to be some sort of money thing going on that they just okayed in Great Britain. $200 billion, I think I heard, is what the figure was. And I'm like, are these guys actually getting in league with Islam and going to use their money system? Because that is very scary.
Well, I've got to say something. I'm not at war with Islam. The average folks, the globalists, are in bed with radical Islam, and they have a system of payments up front for money lending and a trust system. They don't have interest classically. So, yeah, obviously there's a lot of money in Saudi Arabia and places that they want to be able to bring into the markets in England. And so, yes, there are deals going on with that. I appreciate your call, Don. Now, our guest that's going to be joining us will be here with us for the rest of the hour. Later in the hour, we'll go to your phone calls for Brian and Cypher and Andrew and Anthony and others that are holding. But our next guest, we tend to get guests on like this, and I think we all take it for granted. I do too myself. When we get these guests on that are blowing the whistle on huge issues, like when we have guests on that blow the whistle on evangelicals told they'll be arrested if they give money to evangelical churches in the U.S. Army. That's a total violation of the First Amendment. Sounds like Nazi Germany. We were talking about that a year ago. Now it's finally national news, and they're now backing off that. But we have to understand the power of this broadcast, the power of our guest, and the info. It was back in June, and here's the article up on Infowars.com. The Guardian revealed a major NSA scoop, then deleted it from their website. That's from Business Insider. We also covered it and broke it at Infowars.com with Wayne Madsen. And it was Wayne Madsen who was on with us the week before. The Guardian contacted him. They interviewed him about the Q group spying on the Germans, where the spy bases were, where the cables were. Everything he said is now what's caused the big firestorm. Snowden came out after Madsen and confirmed all of this. And so I just want you to know, Wayne broke this here and at WayneMadsenReport.com, his site. And I'm going to have the guys do an article going back to him 15 years ago, a year ago, a few months ago here on the show, going over all this. He has a new book out on the subject as well. But I want to get his breakdown on these Google barges. Now, we learned there's a bunch of them. I have my intel, what they are. I want to get his intel. And basically where all this is going. But now Cameron is in the Guardian again, but also in press releases saying there'll be tougher measures if media continues publishing Snowden leaks. The British government's been trying to control our media over here on these leaks because it was Britain that taught the U.S. how to do this spying in World War II. Now, the issue is they came out and said it's not economically pointed at people. Of course it's economically pointed. That's the main gist of it. But, of course, Madsen also pointed out the Germans and French and others are spying as well. He talked about their Mediterranean cables undersea. So this is news-making stuff, but and he doesn't like having his horn tooted here. The point is that Wayne doesn't call himself a whistleblower, but he was in the Navy and in anti-submarine warfare. Then he was in the NSA in security and in internal security, not security guards in the parking lot. Wayne was in watching the NSA people. So that's why he knows where all the bodies are buried. He knows so much about the infrastructure. And so I want to ask him up front, now what new intel he's got, what it means, this war on the press, that he first talked about 5 years ago on my show. He said Obama is really going after the press when nobody was talking about this. And he actually said about 6 years ago when Obama first got in. And he said, you watch, it's going to be hellish. And he said they've set up new groups in the NSA to spy on journalists. Everything he said came out later. So he's got the sources. He's got to be careful how he says it, obviously. Like, oh, it's my opinion this is going on, because they can come arrest him under this tyranny. But, Wayne, we're going to break in a minute. I know you don't mind too much me breaking down your info, but I mean, really, aren't you one of the most important NSA insiders to really expose the entire system?
Well, I was around in the 90s talking about NSA when very few people were. There was Jim Bamford, who actually also once worked there back in the 60s, and a few others, but they were very few and far between. And I started getting involved in privacy issues. And, of course, in the early 90s, at the end of the Bush 41 administration and the advent of the Clinton administration, they were talking about some real privacy invasive technologies. And I therefore began to become more vocal and more active about the power of NSA and the problem that we were eventually going to face, because NSA is a anytime anyone hears NSA and privacy in the same sentence, it's ludicrous. So to hear that General Alexander, the director of NSA, has, when he goes to work every morning, privacy of American citizens is at the top of his agenda, that is just a bald-faced poppycock, to be kind.
Well, let's roll through Feinstein saying NSA total spy grid is not surveillance. That's like saying Muhammad Ali is not a champion boxer.
Yeah, old Di-Fi, and then she said yesterday, she said she's appalled that the U.S. is spying on allied leaders. So it's okay to do metadata collection on U.S. citizens, on the everyday American taxpayer, including all of her constituents in the state of California. But when it comes to people like Angela Merkel and Francois Hollande and Bibi Netanyahu, oh no, we can't spy on them. This is an outrage. So that tells you what kind of elitist that Dianne Feinstein really is. It's when her elite group is spied upon, then it's a huge tragedy in her mind, which I don't think there's much in her mind, but whatever she functions on anyway, she thinks that's a terrible thing to happen when the Spanish prime minister is being spied on, but some hardworking guy driving a truck or plowing a field in California and the rest of the country, they can have their phone calls listened to.
And by the way, they now admit what we've always known, what you told me 15 years ago, what Bamford's book said. We've interviewed him many times, what all the record shows. Select corporations are spying on individuals to create aggregate data to know how to game markets, game systems for Fortune 100 to shut everybody else down. So when we hear they're spying to help America, they're shutting America down. They're using, just like with the flash trading and these systems Goldman Sachs has, it's all fraud. They're using this to take over the economy. They're using this to prosecute a criminal war against liberty. And protect their criminal, and protect themselves from criminal prosecution.
That's right. Well, I testified before the European Parliament back in the late 90s and said that NSA was spying on economic data to give U.S. companies a leg up on these international contracts. And at the time, NSA said, oh, no, that's ridiculous. We have other priorities. And that was a very large priority for NSA, and it remains so. It's probably more of a priority today. Look, NSA and the U.S. intelligence community is in total bed with the boys on Wall Street. They always have been and always will be, unless we start to think about shutting down these intelligence agencies and starting from scratch. We obviously can't do unilateral disarmament when it comes to intelligence, but these agencies like NSA and the CIA are so corrupt. They need to be shut down, disestablished, and then you build up from scratch and make sure you don't get all that nonsense in there that we have today.
By the way, I mean, you can't say exactly what you did in the NSA, but you knew about the Q group from my sources and things because you were previously, part of something similar but not oppressive. I mean, what did you do that's not classified at the NSA, and why have you? Because I've really gone back and thought about it. I mean, I'm not putting down Snowden. He has a lot of courage in this dark climate. And he really, really blew them wide open because he did release the latest classified info on their fraud. But, Wayne, I mean, you named the cables, where the bases are. You broke down what they're doing. Obviously, you give gestalts, so you're not giving out specific info. But it's not violating intelligence when you expose crimes. That would be complicit in the crime if you didn't expose it. You said previous administrations, the NSA guy that's at UT, you said actually did their job and they didn't spy on people. And I believe you when you say that. But you had to be pretty high level to know all the stuff you knew. I mean, what did you do at the NSA?
Well, when I was at NSA, the Q group was called the M group then. It's internal security, and we all had to abide by their dictates. But most of what I wrote about after I left NSA was from open source. Now, one could say, well, I could determine what was, real from the stuff that was nonsense, but, that's the job of a journalist to do that. So my job at NSA, I worked in a unit that was established by Admiral Poindexter, who was Reagan's national security advisor, and it was to implement something called the National Security Decision that was to try to create a new category of information called unclassified but sensitive. And the whole purpose of this, and this was unconstitutional, I used to call on the phone LexisNexis, and Lockheed had an online database called Dialog, and I had to tell them, look, we know the Soviets are your customers, are getting all kinds of scientific and technical unclassified data out of your systems, and the Reagan administration is thinking about creating a new category of information called sensitive but unclassified. By the way, after 9/11, they did get that finally, that new category. And you know what? Some people said, well, yeah, the Soviet Union's our customers, just like you guys at NSA are. So what's the big deal? I said, well, the big deal here is that we think that, they said, we're not going to talk to you. I had the phone hung up on me, as a matter of fact, by a bunch of irate people in their IT departments and their general counsel's offices. So that's what I specifically did there. I was basically part of implementation of a very, very unpopular program, which, by the way, was later canceled after a lot of heat.
And then, of course, Poindexter came out when he thought we were scared right after they staged 9/11. And the New York Times and said, we're going to watch everything you do, what you eat, where you go. You have no more freedom. It's total information awareness network. That was the headline. All-seeing eye pyramid. This is the convicted felon who was making money, and then when we beat it, they just went to private corporations running all our data.
That's right. That's right. And so Poindexter tried to pull this, and if it wasn't for a great, and he died earlier this year, Jack Brooks from Texas, Congressman Jack Brooks, the cigar chomping protege of LBJ. He's the one who got rid of that stupid NSDD to implement this new policy. It was NSDD 145, by the way. I couldn't remember the number. You know, one thing about the government, it's all these acronyms and numbers. You know, it was NSDD.
Oh, I know. As good as my memory is trying to track all this, at a certain point, it all mixes together. That's why I'm always checking things, because I'll like flip things around or mix numbers. Now let's expand on this, because I've got a lot of questions. We're going to ask them after the break. But what is most important that you want to impart about what's going on right now? This was a football game, and Sauron is the NSA and the foreign banks that run it, and Free Humanity, is the other group. How is Sauron doing right now?
Well, backed up against the wall. And, anytime, and I wrote a piece the other day, when these oligarchs are backed up against the wall, they strike out like desert asps. And we have to be on our guard right now for every one of these terrorist attacks. We got to be waiting for some false flag. There was an attack in Tiananmen Square in Beijing yesterday. A car ran into some people and blew up right near where the leadership of the Chinese government was meeting, the president and prime minister. So we may see more of these attacks, because what they're going to say is, you see, this is why we need this foreign intelligence capability. But it didn't work for the Boston Marathon. They had the information before 9/11. They didn't do anything with it. So this is a ruse that the NSA always tells you. We need this power. Well, since when have they had anything that prevented one of these major terrorist attacks?
Instead, as you know, they're using the NSA data in counterintelligence to block whistleblowers who try to stop the staged terror attacks, because they're running the major terror attacks, or at least, in some cases, opening the door and then shepherding these terrorists.
Yeah, and the other thing NSA is doing, you mentioned the press, and you mentioned Business Insider. By the way, they were one of the first to come out with an article after my quote was in the Observer and the Guardian in the UK. They were the first to come out. They quoted a guy who I never heard of before, a Professor John Schindler at the Naval War College in Newport, Rhode Island, who called me blank crazy, that blank crazy, to clean it up. And that was in Business Insider. He basically started a Twitter campaign that forced the Guardian and the Observer to eventually pull that article. And these are, so what NSA is doing, they're also Cyber Command there. They have two, and these are the offensive information warfare people working under the cover of the Naval War College, because he's not the only one up there doing this kind of thing. He was on CNN today defending NSA. He's always gone on either MSNBC or CNN to defend NSA, and he claims he's not speaking on behalf of the Naval War College. You know what? If he's getting a government paycheck, and we know he was because he was furloughed during the shutdown, if he's getting a government paycheck, he's acting on behalf of the U.S.
But it's
Navy,
worse
US
than
government.
that. They had all the MSNBC people come out and say bad things about you. And look how discredited they are. Everything you said has now come out exactly as you said it. Do you get any credit? No. You get no. And again, you deserve credit. You get death threats. You go through all sorts of stuff. You're an honorable person. And so what do you get? Totally ignored, because the foreign press is a bunch of government-run scum. That's the New World Order.
We're on the march. The empire's on the run.
Is our guest, and back in June of this year, the London Guardian interviewed him. He laid out how they're spying, where they were spying, what they're doing. But he pointed out Europe was also spying back, what was going on with it, and then they removed it. They didn't say it was discredited. They didn't say it existed. It was taken down less than a day later. Then they started having all these government operatives attack him. They had the White House run MSNBC come out and just say, oh, Wayne Madsen's crazy. CNN attacked him. Who else attacked you? My point is that it shows...
the Daily Beast.
That's right. And Wayne, notice, it's not just that they're lapdogs and won't report the news. They attack real journalists who are getting death threats. These are enemy soldiers, basically.
Well, that whole issue... it was interesting. I mentioned how the Twitter campaign started, and it was both in the U.S. and the UK. And then one of the guys in the UK was a guy named Damian Thompson. Now, he works for the Guardian and the Observer's competitor, the Daily Telegraph, which I call the Daily Tory Graph. they're just in bed with the Tory party over there, and so that should have been no surprise that they would have attacked their competitor. But this was a Twitter campaign, and I would note it's very interesting. NSA used to just maintain a system called First Fruits, and they've changed the name since I exposed it. But they would just keep track of journalists who wrote about NSA. Obviously, they were after their sources, but it was done very quietly, very covertly. And but now they're basically more aggressive. They're hiring, but basically they got their shills out there appearing on, as you said, MSNBC, CNN. They were on this Reliable Sources that used to be Howie Kurtz's show on CNN, where they had three guys with the Daily Beast all attacking me. So that's great great television journalism. But just more recently, the Association of Newspaper Editorial Writers had a meeting in Newport, Rhode Island, where they gave an award to the president of the Naval War College, and it's his people, his professors, that are launching the personal attacks against anyone who writes about NSA whistleblowers, Tom Drake, Bill Binney, Kirk Wiebe, Ray McGovern, myself, Jim Bamford. All these individuals are constantly being attacked out of the Naval War College on Naval War College time. They claim they're not using Naval War College computers. But somebody on WordPress has a blog where they're attacking this group at the Naval War College. And the latest I heard is these professors think that I'm secretly running this blog on WordPress, which I'm not. I don't know. It's anonymous. I don't know who runs it. But they're apparently talking about threatening me with a lawsuit. I said, bring it on. Come on. I want any judge to laugh that one out. I might have to even subpoena their friends at NSA for their surveillance records to show that, I have nothing to do with any blogs. Although I agree with what the blog is saying. They're saying that these guys are violating the Hatch Act by engaging in partisan political activity on government time. We're paying for this.
Well, it's famous. Look at the announcements that they've now lifted the ban on domestic Pentagon lying and PSYOPs. And so that's going on. But separately, NSA propaganda video among the highest downvoted percentages in YouTube history. Simply amazing. The NSA director and the NSA Director General Alexander came out and said we need to persecute the press. We need to go after anybody that does this. And it's got 14,561 dislikes, 243 likes. And so, here's the deal. Let the Pentagon come out and admit they're involved in domestic lying and propaganda. They're just being traitors to America. Let these people attack you. No one listens to them or believes in them. You ought to beg them to attack you, Wayne.
Oh, I enjoy it. Like I said, they can bring on all the lawsuits they want for frivolous claims. But it's funny. Alexander gave an interview, and I thought this was very bizarre. He likened people who object to NSA surveillance to little boys who don't want to take a bath or a shower. Now, it's
always perv talk. It's like the senator that said these are love pats from the TSA.
Right. Well, maybe General Alexander should get together with Jerry Sandusky if he's got this thing about little boys not taking showers,
I'm telling you, though, they always have this perv talk. But here it is, NSA Director General Alexander and cybersecurity, and everyone hates him. And then he gets up there at the hacker conferences and talks to him in this droning mind control voice. Yeah. And then they later admit he was trying to calm the audience. These people are crazy. No one's buying their baloney. Where do you think all this is going? Where's their train headed right now?
Oh, my God. Well, I'll tell you, NSA will survive this. I think Alexander he's going to be replaced anyway. He's being replaced with a Navy guy, Navy admiral. We don't know much about him. But, these guys are always the same. The NSA directors come and go, although Hayden and Alexander were at NSA longer than any of their predecessors, which is rather odd that position is starting to turn into like the FBI director, which is a 10-year term. We just got a new one, Comey now. Obama was at his swearing in yesterday. So that's bad because at least, if they you cycle in a new director every 3 or 4 years, you might get, some new blood. But basically, these guys come and go. The issue at NSA is the civilians who remain there and really are running that show. And so NSA will continue to exist. They're talking about, there's an internal commission or committee that was named that's going to come up with some reforms. I mean, that's like putting, bank robbers on a committee on how to reduce bank thefts.
Sure, it's a whitewash where they can suck in everybody and subpoena them and find out who's there and then make sure everybody gets cement shoes. I mean, that's how testimony works. I want to go to some phone calls across the board here. You'll be able to speak to it all, Wayne. But first off, the Google barges. They're launching a bunch of them in San Francisco. They admit that it's got Google personnel with Department of Defense. We know Google's hooked in with NASA. They get Air Force prices on gasoline, Air Force refueling. And you've got these barges being built. The word is, even if they pass laws against this, these are going to hook into the Google glasses and the NSA to where it won't matter. They'll be offshore with their own generators with diesel brought out to them to run their little NSA cubes offshore. What is your intel?
Look, Google was there's a CIA venture capital company called In-Q-Tel. In-Q-Tel, and before it was something else. But this group exists to find up-and-coming tech companies, especially in the Bay Area, San Francisco, to give them seed money. And Google got seed money from the CIA to create this huge search engine. It was originally done for intelligence searches. And Oracle, that company, was founded with CIA seed money to create relational database systems. Now we have Oracle Incorporated and Google Incorporated. We have Facebook. Facebook got CIA seed money, and now that, and Twitter. I would almost guess that Twitter is no exception. They had their IPO the other day.
Well, even local news admits it's a Google operation and tied into Google glasses. I mean, what do you have any idea exactly what this flotilla of cube-like little NSA command bases are they're building?
Yeah, I'm not surprised they're on barges because it's like gambling barges. If the heat comes on gambling in these places, they'll just retake the barges and go elsewhere. And same thing with the Google barges. They're very mobile, so they can do whatever they want until, why they picked the Bay Area. Because the one thing I know about the Bay Area, the people in that area are very, very concerned about their privacy. They tend to be a lot more progressive in their thinking about government surveillance than other parts of the country. But I'm sure one of the reasons they're on barges is mobility. They can move them around.
Other NSA points that we need to look at, they're now announcing, those black boxes we mandated, they're going to wirelessly track you and tax you. And the NSA says we're allowed to track that without warrants. Well, I mean, they can say they're allowed to move into my house, I guess, next. I mean, it is just out of control what mad dogs. It's like a government riot. It's a spirit of do whatever we want to the people. Is it because of these corporate interests? I mean, why is it so corrupt?
Yeah, NSA wouldn't be what NSA is today without the government contractors. I mean, after all, Snowden was a contractor for Booz Allen. And, that's part of the mix. They make big bucks. When General Hayden took over NSA, SAIC cleaned up on a major rehaul of the signals intelligence operations there. Money was wasted on this thing called Trailblazer. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars down the tubes. And all of Hayden's buddies at SAIC made out like bandits.
And I'm glad, so we're paying for our own enslavement and they're getting rich in the process, committing these crimes against our privacy while they gobble up America. I'm glad you brought that up because Hayden's on a train, for those that forgot, last week, literally bragging, and from what I heard, threatening reporters, like, I can have you renditioned, I run everything, black sites, I'm in command, on a train babbling as louder than I am, that he's just totally awesome. And of course, you've talked about him at CIA dinners you've been at and stuff, coming up and getting in your face. He just radiates to me the image of an absolute degenerate. I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, I mean, Hayden there's a lot of information on his background too. When you want to get into the perv stuff too, but his exploits in Sarajevo, for example, during the Balkans.
But see,
War,
I don't have any intel. I just look at him, and he's a creep.
Yeah, well, but hey, Hayden, look who Hayden's business partner is. Hayden's in the Chertop group with Michael Chertop. So, this is the gruesome twosome of surveillance when you think about it.
The naked body scanner guy, and then who makes money off videotaping your children's private parts, and then you got
Alexander coming, probably retiring, and he'll probably join him with his boys in the shower. It sounds like the only guy they're missing is Jerry Sandusky.
Let me ask this: with all your DC Madam intel, all the other stuff, what percentage of people are pedophiles versus just perverts? Like, what percentage are gay, heterosexual, or pedophiles in DC?
Well, as far as a gay, I remember Barney Frank when he was caught running a call boy service out of his
with
town.
underage.
Yeah, and he said if you expel me or do anything other than a mild censure, I'm going to name 25% of the members of the House who I know for a fact are gay. So that was in the mid '80s. So there's a baseline from somebody. I have to believe his numbers. I mean, he would know. And then the other thing is, most of those 25% back then happened to have been Republicans. And
yeah, that's the word. Generally, Republicans are gay, and the Democrats like to rape women usually for some reason.
Right. They're into the drunken debauchery business. But
I'm serious. It keeps popping up. They beat up and rape women.
Right.
And then the Republicans are gay, but then across the board, a large percentage are pedophiles.
Yeah, a lot are, and I think it's very hard to put a percentage on that. But I mean, we had another guy back then when Frank got caught. There was Jerry Studs, a congressman from Massachusetts. And he was a Democrat, by the way, but he got caught with underage pages. But we've seen that over and over again. That's about an 8 to 10 year cycle in the Congress with these underage pages. We had these blow-ups in the early 80s, and then we had mid-'80s, and then we had that guy.
Well, we had the White House with the underage call boys. That was in the Washington Times. Remember that?
That's the end of the 80s. That story came out. That involved members of Congress. And we had, what's his name, Foley from Florida, in the most recent one a few years back.
Wow. Well, I want to go to some phone calls here. Brian and David and Anthony and Andrew and others. They'll be all over the map. But Brian says, is U.S. Special Forces op vet and wants to talk about government contracting. He's probably got some comments on this. Go ahead, Brian. Thanks for holding.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments, Alex. What I wanted to mention about the contract, you were talking yesterday about how much the police has been militarized in the U.S. And I was at a gun shop the other day, and there was a guy wearing full multicam, state police, Texas State Police, had a pistol on his side, drop leg holster. Looked like he was out of Wyatt Earp, days or something, but it was like full multicam. It's something that you would see, overseas. And so you see this militarization of what you're talking about, and then you see the mentality of what you always say, the guys bugging their eyes out at you. And a lot of this some of this is implemented from the prime vendor contract. From, there's like four of the prime vendors. And they changed the name of it. It's the Tailored Logistics support contract, I believe now. So basically, there was a sales strategy shift where the government contractors, I think, after they realized that the U.S. would be pulling out of the Middle East, they were making a bunch of money for a long time. But then once it started to scale down, they were trying to figure out, how are we going to make money? How are we going to continue to make money? And then also, who are we going to sell to? And so
that's right. They're on record now saying they're now going to make the veterans and gun owners their new enemy, and the government's giving them the funds to turn every town into Fallujah. Go ahead and finish your point.
Well, basically, the veterans, I mean, a lot of them are patriots. The ones that aren't, everybody, they still kind of want to live out, some of the experiences that they had over there. And that doesn't necessarily always have to be bad, but if they get into the police or anything back here, then a lot of what they learned overseas is actually being pushed onto American citizens. They don't think about things like the Constitution, their rights that they're violating. And so where you were saying the rifle, pointed at somebody's head, wherever that was the other day, that's something that you'd see standard overseas.
At Sacramento, yeah, no, now they just, any excuse to shake us down and teach us we're slaves. And the cops don't get, they're being given this evil power because the globalists are getting ready to take us down. I mean, these cops are going to have their family bankrupt. Mama ain't going to have a house. I mean, you guys are literally helping bring on our destruction. The good news is I see police actually waking up. But the problem is they don't care. They just put those guys on, duty writing tickets, and then they put the guy that wants to be Rambo in charge, of a Humvee with a machine gun on it at a checkpoint. And you pull up to it, and I mean, now they have checkpoints with active duty Marines in California searching people. I mean, it's totally evil. They're getting ready for collapse. But any other points?
Yeah, just two real quick points. One thing, Art Acevedo, right before you had him on your show, I tried to get in at the time. There was a big Texas police chiefs meeting, retired and I think current. And he had gone and spoke at the meeting, and I had heard from a police chief buddy of mine who was retired. And he had said that, on your show, he said, oh, I'm not, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. I know that from that meeting, he actually got up in front of all these police chiefs, retired and current, and basically said...
Stay there, stay there. I want to hear this.
In e-cigarette...
WayneMadsonReport.com is his site. We're going to tell you about his new book, breaking all this NSA information down in a moment, and go back to other calls. Brian in Texas. Yeah, Art Acevedo, he says he'll come back on the show. He does stuff like when we have the Mayor Pro Tem says, once we do register your guns, then we will ban them. And then they were yelling at a guy that had a sign. And then Art Acevedo goes, oh, but your guy was really cussing. We went back to the video. He wasn't. He just really is like PSYOP trained, man, where you'll almost be convinced by what he's saying. And it's amazing. So tell us at this police chief meeting what your friend, this retired police chief, said Art Acevedo said. Look, I know he wouldn't be getting invited up to hang out with Obama and call for national gun control. But he's here like, I don't want your guns. I just want what Obama wants. Feinstein, I don't want your guns. I'm just on record saying ban them all. So tell us what Art Acevedo really said.
So what I was told was that he basically got up in front of everybody and was trying to convince, all these police chiefs that we really have to move towards, some sort of gun control policy, and that that the whole, auditorium of all these current and previous police chiefs, that there was just like an awkward silence, and everybody kind of started looking around at each other. So it didn't go over well with a lot of, I guess there's a lot of Texas patriots still left, and so it didn't go over well, and it was just a very kind of awkward moment, I think, for him and for everybody in the room. So that was refreshing here. I wanted to try to, get online to actually ask him directly about that, because you could probably find out what the conference is. I don't know if it happens once a year. I'll actually try to find out myself.
Well, he's on record saying that. And his dad ran guns into Cuba against Fidel. That's why I've told him, I said, look, you say you're not a communist, but go join Fidel. They took the guns there. I mean, Art Acevedo's a real charming guy, but, man, I tell you, it's really sad, folks. I appreciate your call. Let me tell you, their strategy is to turn the state red by bringing in Hispanic voters, making them legal, and then getting them to vote to take the guns. Why would folks fleeing Mexico where you can't own guns want to come here and then be disarmed here as well? I mean, that's, it's so sick. It's so sick. Let's get Wayne Madson's take on what he just heard. What is the disarmament agenda really all about, Wayne Madson?
Well, I mean, when you look at what's going on, we had the UN approve this small arms treaty. Every time they do that, though, they talk about small arms control around the world. Yet, when you go into these war zones, like Syria, for example, they're still exporting these weapons to these rebel groups. And who are the rebels? Al-Qaeda. It doesn't seem like there's any kind of logical policy at play here.
And now we've got the government schools under Michelle Obama saying parents can't be trusted to pack their school lunches. Just broke at Infowars.com by Steve Watson. School test teachers' kids. This is a quote, commands of government officials must be obeyed by all. Papers produced by Global Education Corporation, part of No Child Left Behind program, where they also teach 2 + 2 = 5. at its core, Wayne Madsen, NSA whistleblower, what is at the heart of this authoritarian takeover? And then tell us about your new book that folks can find at WayneMadsenReport.com.
Well, it's all about, obeying orders. I thought it was interesting the other day. I read a story about a kid that pointed his finger at another child in school. Like bang, bang. Kid was suspended immediately. I mean, which one of us has never done something like that?
Well, no, exactly. It's about we're all criminals now for stuff that isn't criminal, but they're okay. And if you look on screen of your TV viewer, the name of Wayne Madsen's book, I'll give that to folks, National Security Agency Surveillance, Reflections and Revelations, 2001-2013, in paperback, Wayne Madsen's new book, National Security Agency Surveillance. And folks, we're going into overdrive, Infowars.com/show for the video feeds. We're going to come back with a few final calls for Wayne. Today. Stay with us. All right, final segment, a little bit of overdrive here, trying to cram in some calls for Wayne Madsen. Wayne, people shouldn't just get your book because they'll be so informed about the NSA. They should also get it to support you in the valiant work you've done. Tell us a little bit about your book, available at WayneMadsenReport.com.
Well, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, we talked about how I had written about some of these issues, NSA, that have come out within the last, since Snowden went to Hong Kong and on to Russia. And I had been writing about some of these same issues as early as the 1990s. So what I did is I put together all of these reports and then also included a lot of the Snowden revelations, just so people can see that this essentially wasn't new information. The only thing new was some of the fancy code words they came up with, prism and egotistical giraffe. I kind of love that one. White tamale is another one. But basically, the book is a compendium of all these articles with the updates post Snowden. And where is this going? Because I just saw, the stuff, we were told by Glenn Greenwald, 50,000 documents plus. I counted them all up. What's been released so far? A little over 300 pages. So 50,000 pages of documents, and we only have a little over 300. Where's the rest of them? But I looked at what we have so far, and this Special Collection Service is a joint NSA-CIA operation. These were the ones who were listening in from the U.S. Embassy in Berlin, the Botschaft, as the Germans call it, which is right around the corner from where Berkel's office is. This group, SCS, has been around a long time. They specialize in planting bugs. I wrote about them in the Village Voice back in, I think it was 2000, and listed all those facilities that we knew about then. Now there's 80 that come out in this NSA SCS slide. But I think the next revelations we're going to hear, and people get you'll get all vexed about it too. It'll really hit the MSNBCs, all these vapid news networks. We're going to hear that the Pope, his phone calls were listened in on, and the entire Vatican, and also the Dalai Lama, who's a big hero to many in the pro-Obama community, the human rights, the Soros
Yeah,
world.
I should have been asking you this whole time. Because you've got your ear to the ground. What's the new big revelations coming out? What else is coming out?
Well, it's going to be revelations that we listen in on the Pope and his communications, his private communications, and also people like the Dalai Lama, Nelson Mandela, and they'll all be these gnashing of teeth and pulling of hair. How could the administration do this? But see, this will have been partly in the last Bush administration, but it'll have, gone over to the present administration. And so
what about the asinine claim that Obozo didn't know about this, and now they've had the NSA chief and others say, how dare you, you ordered us to? I mean, what about the cat fight going on there?
Anyone who knows anything about the President's Daily Brief, and I've never been to one, but I know people who have actually given the President's Daily Brief. It is the sum total of all U.S. intelligence. What the presidents historically love is that kind of business. Oh, Mr. President, we heard President so-and-so, Chancellor Merkel, was discussing this with their foreign minister.
Sure, and if he's having internal fights with Hillary, he wants to know how many girlfriends Hillary hung out with that day, because we know she's insatiable.
He knows all about these capabilities because he's the guy getting the end reports on the products of this.
So it's total asinine BS.
Oh, of course it is. You know, they used to say they would neither confirm or deny any of these reports. Now you got the White House denying it, which is almost as bad as confirming.
I'm sorry to the other callers we tried to get to you. Wayne, God bless you. We salute your courage and your steadfast work. And it's great to count you as a friend, buddy. Good job.
Okay, Alex, good to talk to you. Take care.
Good talking to you. All right, nightly news tonight, 7 o'clock, Lord willing, and back here tomorrow with the radio show, 11 a.m. Central. Up, and away!